Is time running out for Antonio Pierce and Luke Getsy? I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up live on today's show, I'm going to talk a lot about AP, and I'm going to talk a lot about Luke Getsy. I was somebody that stood up here in front of the entire nation and said, I want Antonio Pierce to be our head coach. And I'll be real, I'm very torn of, do I want to continue to rock with AP? Because, damn it, I want Antonio Pierce to work out as the head coach. But then, that's my heart telling me that. My head and my eyeballs, based on what I have seen over the past week, over the past months, basically this entire season, tell me that I don't think Antonio Pierce is that good of a head coach. So coming up here live on today's show, I'm going to tell the entire nation, one, how we can fix this Raiders offense. If AP is going to continuously say it comes down to execution, and when you listen to Antonio Pierce talk, it sounds like he's putting more of the blame on the players and less blame on the coaching staff. If that's the case, cool. I'm going to tell you how I would fix this Raiders offense if it was up to me. Then I'm going to tell you this. If Antonio Pierce continues to do these things right here, he will not have a job next season. That's just a cold, hard fact. And then if AP doesn't end up getting fired, well, let's look at some of the potential head coach candidates that this team could have in 2025. I'll be real with you. I hate the fact that I'm talking about this today, but when you're 2-6, when it looks like that this team seemingly gets worse and worse and worse every week on a 4-game losing streak, you don't know if this coaching staff is going to be able to put you in the right direction going forward. I think that sometimes you got to have these type of conversations. If you want to get your questions, your comments up here on the show, as always, use hashtag Raiders, or you can super chat. I do want to apologize ahead of time. I have been pretty sick over the past 2 days. I'm powering through. You're going to hear some sniffles. You might hear some coughing. You're definitely going to get a sneeze or two. But here's the thing. I will always show up, and I know the nation always shows up. So let me know down in the comments section. We're going to give some shout-outs here on the show. How many games will the Raiders win this season? This is an important question simply because if you all say 2 wins, 3 wins, 4 wins, then I don't see how you can keep Antonio Pierce here as the head coach next season. If there's some fans out there that go, well, hey, Mitch, we're about to flip the script on this season, and we're going to get going in the right direction, because a lot of times it doesn't really matter what you do in the first half of the season. And if the Raiders are 2-7 going into that bye, but then coming out after that bye, they kind of flip it, and they look like a totally different football team, that might be able to save AP's job. So let me know down below in the comments section. We got 600 people already tuning into the Raiders Report, which, believe me, I love seeing that type of energy. I don't know if he's here today, but my guy Bryce B was the MVP in our Week 2, Week 4 game, which might be the good luck charm here on the Raiders Report. So let me know down below. Drew says 2. R8D Rich says 4.5. Abel's going to go with 5. Derek Wynn's going to go with a 4. I see does not matter from Curtis. It does matter. We got Roger Chandler. Mitch, Ben Johnson, please. 4 wins. I would love me some Ben Johnson as well. Pablo Martinez, what's up, my brother? He says 6. King Shab, it's been a minute. I feel you. Number 4, Jeremy Cole. One of the realest ones in here. I was actually, Jeremy, I don't know if you were here the other day when I was talking on Sunday about how you ended up giving me your chip. It was probably one of the coolest things. It is one of the coolest things that I own from any Raiders fan. Alexander's going to go 4. Connor's going to go 6. What's up, Big Rock? He says, what's up, Mitch? King J, he's going to go with a 5. Chuggs, how many wins are the Raiders going to have this season? Originally, when the season started, I said 9-8. Obviously, I don't think that anymore. If you saw the video that I put out today, it was the Raiders have the inside track to the number 1 overall pick. If you haven't seen that video yet, I guarantee you this. If you go watch that show, you're going to end that one going, holy shit, I think the Raiders are going to have the number 1 overall pick. So Jeremy in his pink shirt today, what do you think?
Undefeated the rest of the year.
If the Raiders go undefeated the rest of the season, oh, dude, if the Raiders went undefeated the rest of the season, I don't know what I think my body would actually physically give out. I wouldn't be able to talk for I don't even know how long. My throat would just be absolutely crushed. Pause. Bobby Hernandez, Chuggs, can I get a ahoy? What's up, Duggador? If we're legit trying to win and our season is over before Week 10, then AP gotta go. Duggador, I'll say this. I mean, AP's not going to.
He also sent another one.
He also sent another one. AP blaming the players is like blaming your kids. No such thing as bad kids, just bad parenting. I'm not going to totally agree with that statement.
I was going to say,
real.
I'm going to disagree with that totally. I used to be a pre-K teacher. There are some bad kids out there where the parents are the sweetest parents and they try their hardest, and sometimes it's just some bad kids.
I don't totally disagree with you, Thugador. I will disagree with you a little bit. I think for the Raiders' sake, though, when you're paid millions of dollars as a player, you're expected to be able to show up. But also when you see week after week after week just brain-dead coaching decisions, I think that's sometimes why people get a little bit frustrated. And you're right. If Antonio Pierce is legitimately trying to win games, and if saving his job can be as simple as firing Luke Getsy and he doesn't decide to do it, that's his bed that he's laying in, and it's my job to be able to talk about it. It's also my job here to be able to give a shout-out to today's sponsor, Gametime.
There we go.
Last-minute tickets, flash deals, views from your seats, the lowest price guaranteed. I love Gametime, and I think that y'all will too. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, that's CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. If you do use Gametime, make sure you check out the Gametime picks. Those are the best deals available. If you're like Mitch, I need something to root for when I watch a Raiders game. Believe me, man, I totally get it. And that's why I want you to get started with our other sponsor here, PrizePicks. Easy and exciting daily fantasy sports made easy. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Just make sure that you use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 line of PrizePicks. Run your game. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So Chuggs hooked me up with one of these, which Thursday night football, and for those that do not know, Jeremy will not be here. I got Reed, and I was talking to Common Raider yesterday. I'm telling you this, the outfit that Reed and I are going to wear, it's going to open up some eyes. Some of y'all might even be like, is that a scratch and sniff type of outfit? So this is what Chuggs is rolling with. He's going more on Stroud, more on Tank Dell, which I really like. Sorry to hear that Stephon Diggs is out for the remainder of the year. But for me, I just picked up Tank Dell last week, so that's... I hate saying it, but it helps me out.
Not funny, but I always think it's like maybe a little funny of like I have a bunch of Raider fans that I DM with and stuff, and it's like I've gotten DMs today and it's like sending my condolences. Like, I'm waiting for the flowers to show up at the front desk.
I mean, if we get some flowers, personally, I don't know if anybody's ever sent us flowers. We've had a lot of weird stuff being sent to us, a lot of cool stuff.
As a man, I don't think I've ever gotten sent or received flowers a day in my life.
I'll tell you this, if somebody sent me flowers, I'd actually be a little bit upset. I get Alex loves flowers. They put a smile on her face. To me, though, I'm like, notice I don't really need flowers. Like, there's never been a time where I've walked home after I got Alex flowers, put my head in the flowers, and I'm like, wow, these smell really great.
Sometimes you just have to stop and smell the roses.
Totally worth it. What up, Darian? Fly jacket. What's up, Raider Nation? We have two options. If we keep this staff, fire Luke Getsy and hire Brian Daboll. Option 2, hire Ben Johnson and Daboll as OC. Either way, we need a quarterback. I know there's no doubt that we need a quarterback, though if you listen to some people that really are close to the Giants organization, kind of sounds like Daboll's going to stay with the New York Giants. But I don't disagree where if you're the Raiders and if you do decide to keep Antonio Pierce, because don't get me wrong, there's a part of me, and I think every Raider fan in here is a part of that, where it kind of goes like you sit there and you wonder, and you're like, if Antonio Pierce had a better OC and a better quarterback, would we be this upset? I don't think that we would be this upset. I think it would be going back to, we could still be upset about Antonio Pierce's game management, but maybe he would look better again if he has a different OC and a different quarterback. I think the other thing, though, we got to look at is if Antonio Pierce is going to say things like business decisions, and I'm going to look at everybody in the eyes here, and I'm going to say this. If you have the opportunity to get Ben Johnson, even if Antonio Pierce wins most of his games to finish the year, I respect AP a lot. I really do.
If he goes undefeated the rest of the year,
I'd still want Ben Johnson. And that's not an AP thing. It's just Ben Johnson, I think, is clearly the better candidate. It's not a knock on Antonio Pierce at all to say that I want Ben Johnson to be here.
You can't marry a girl who you think's ugly. And right now, you're dating somebody and you're like, she's not looking very hot to me.
I didn't say that. He did. Let's go to Yoda. Hurts to say this, but AP got to go. He's a good position coach, but not a good head coach. Timeout at the 2-minute warning. Bro, believe me, I hear you. Running clock instead of trying to score. Believe me, I hear you. Deflect questions, just execution. Even if you replace Getsy, AP's actions will still hurt us. I'll tell you this right now, and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, that there are some players inside of that Raiders locker room that I'm not saying that they're turning on AP, but there's definitely some questions that are starting to be raised, and you're bringing up a lot of the reasons why the Raiders should potentially move on from AP. I think when you see it certain times, like it's a lot easier to be an interim head coach when you're taking over for Josh McDaniels because, it's all like, all right, we're very, very motivated.
It's like there's a difference between being the babysitter and being the parent.
Correct.
Babysitter, you're like, I can take care of the kids.
Substitute compared to being the teacher.
Yeah, you're like, these kids aren't that bad. Yeah, until it's 3 a.m., you got to work at 6 a.m. the next day. Your kid's sick at home. You're like, oh, wow. This is much different than being the babysitter. Much,
much different than being the babysitter. Also, I do have a big favor to ask everybody right now. For those that do not know, we've been doing this show for a long, long time, and I always like to call this guy one of my best friends. He's like the godfather, I would say, of the Raiders Report. There's been nobody that I would say has helped grow this channel more from a viewer standpoint than anybody by the name of David Zahn. And for those that do not know, today's David Zahn's birthday. So if you guys could do a really, really big favor for me right now, I want to get some HBDs down in the comments section. And Chuggs, I'm going to need to hear some of those vocals a little bit. So when Chuggs starts singing happy birthday to David Zahn, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. If you don't sing along, if you don't type HBD, then you can get the hell out of here. Imagine you get invited to a birthday party. Imagine you invite somebody to your birthday party, not even your kid's birthday party. I'm not calling you my kid. It's just, quite frankly, if I invited somebody to my kid's birthday party and they didn't sing happy birthday to him or her, I'd be a little bit ticked off. So from the bottom of my heart, spam HBD down below to my guy, David Zahn. And on the count of 3, 2, 1.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, David Zahn. Happy birthday to you.
David Zahn, happy birthday, my brother from another mother. We got 700 people here right now. If you don't spam HBD, get the hell out of here. I got Jeremy Cole, Adam Sweeney, David Zahn. It's all love, my man. Luis Rodriguez, Gray 420, Derek Wynn, Beer Break, Dre Dog, Abel Beloso. I know I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today, but you know what? And I'll tell you this right now, and I just took some Dayquil before I did this show. And I'll be real, I didn't have David Zahn's birthday on my calendar, which I'm a little bit upset at myself about that, Zahn. We usually talk a lot. You usually let us know in the chat. I will do a David Zahn milkshake if we get 5 bangs here on today's show. But I'm just going to tell you this. It's probably going to happen a little bit later on. F it. If it happens at any point, I'm doing it. Let's go. Big Time Willie, AOC, Jamar Chase, Jacoby, Trey Tucker, and Bowers.
Are you saying the Raiders are going to trade AOC, Jacoby, Trey Tucker, and Bowers to the Bengals? Because that's the only way this happens.
I don't know how we get Jamar Chase, quite frankly. I mean, I'll say this. Cincinnati is a team that I don't know if they're going to pay Chase. They don't really have a lot of money. But at the same time, you don't go out and trade for a wide receiver like Jamar Chase if Aiden O'Connell is your quarterback. Like, Jamar Chase isn't going to come to the Raiders if Aiden O'Connell is the Raiders quarterback. I think what you need to do there, instead of spending all that money on a guy like Jamar Chase, I think you need to spend some of that money on the offensive line, because if you're going to roll with Aiden O'Connell with this offensive line, you're going to be in the exact same situation as last season. Let's go to Suavemente. What's up, brother? This team has given 0 reasons to believe they will get one more win, because if they have proven anything to me, it's that they will find a way to lose. I do believe that good teams find a way to win, bad teams find a way to lose, and right now, not only are the Raiders a bad football team, but I think you can make an argument that they are the worst coach team in the NFL right now. And again, I hate saying it because throw the tomatoes at me. I was somebody that was really hoping that Antonio Pierce was going to be able to get this ship on the right track. I will fully admit this. If you would have told me back when I was screaming for the Raiders to hire Antonio Pierce, that the Raiders were also going to hire Luke Getsy, Rich Scangarillo, and the Raiders were going to lose Carmen Brasillo as their offensive line coach, I don't know if I would have been as confident in the hire, but this is the bed that we're laying in, and as we can tell, this bed is filled with bed bugs. If you want to get your questions on the show, you got to use hashtag Raiders, or you can super chat to skip the line. What's up, Rich Wolf? Mitch, please tell me we're keeping Jacoby next season. I don't know what the Raiders' plans are, where the Raiders are a 2-6 football team, and I do think Jacoby's one of the guys that probably has the most trade value. He is on the books next season for about $10 million, which if I'm the Raiders, I'm going to try to keep Jacoby because there's not too many wide receivers in the NFL that are as humble and just simply not a diva, not afraid to block, a good skilled wide receiver. He's not a true number one. He's like a fringe number two is kind of how I would put it. But if you are going to get a franchise quarterback, and for the love of God, we better freaking get one. If you're going to get a franchise quarterback, you still need to be able to throw to somebody. And if I'm going to sit up here and go, I want a franchise QB in round one, in round two, I want us to build the offensive line. We do have 2 third-round picks. Devontae's going to end up being a third-rounder, where maybe you can invest in another wide receiver and maybe you can go out and find something else. But, if you move on from Jacoby, who is that new quarterback going to throw to? I love Brock Bowers. We don't really know what's going on with Michael Mayer. I think Trey Tucker can be a good field stretcher, but we haven't really seen anything for him to believe that he can step up and play that big of a role right away. I believe the Raiders are going to keep Jacoby because this team sounds like they are still trying to win football games. Let's go to my man Esco75. Mark, sell the team already. Believe me, you're not going to be the first person that brings this up. You're not going to be the last. But why would Mark Davis sell something that just continuously makes money over and over and over again? I think all Raider fans want it to happen. But if you had a stock right now, or if you were running a business, and if that business was growing at the rapid pace that the Las Vegas Raiders are growing right now, you would never sell that business.
If you owned a taco stand and you gave everybody diarrhea but made $1,000 a day.
So Taco Bell.
You're not selling the taco stand. You're like, I'm gonna keep on selling these diarrhea tacos. Because people are still buying.
Yep, they taste great, but holy shit, do they burn coming out.
Yes.
And that's how every Raiders ticket, I feel like, is. You
it's
great in the moment.
Yeah, you get in, you're like, oh, Allegiant's awesome.
But your butthole burns when you're leaving.
Raider Nation's amazing.
I'm going to need a beach towel to clean that up. Let's go to Ed Robbins. Ed, one of the realest ones out there. If you could do me a favor, Ed, message me on Venmo your shipping address. Ed hit the gong last week and was really close to being the MVP, but I got to give a shout out to Platinum666. Ended up stepping up. Ed, I know that I basically already have your shipping address, but it's always easier for me to go through and look at it. So if you could do me a solid, just send me your shipping address one more time. I got something special coming for you. Mitch, we need stability. Keep AP, get a better OC and O-line, and get rid of Marvin Lewis. There should be 2 or 3 good OC from another teams available. Here's the thing, Ed. We have already OCs that I think would do a better job than Luke Getsy. You got North Turner's kid, Scott Turner. I think Joe Philbin would be somebody that AP would look at with OC experience. To me, though, it's Edgar Bennett and it's Scott Turner, both guys that I would trust to do a better job right now than Luke Getsy. It's funny that you bring up Marvin Lewis. I had somebody text me late last night to do some homework. You know who you are. And I did some digging. I did some homework. And right now, Marvin Lewis and Antonio Pierce, all I'm allowed to say is that there is some... there's confliction. Is that the right word? They're butting heads a little bit from what I understand. But, the Raiders, I like the fact that AP did a good job bringing in guys like Marvin, bringing in guys like Tom Coughlin, bringing in some of these dudes that had past head coaching experience. But what I see right now from this Raiders coaching staff and what I've seen from AP, I feel like AP's doing a lot of deflecting. He's doing a lot of, it's not my fault. It's the players' fault. It's the execution. The plays are right. The coaching staff's doing the right things. We're just not executing. And AP's going to put himself in a little bit of blame, no doubt about it. And the players deserve a little bit of blame as well. But what I want to see from my head coach is I want to see somebody who stands up, takes the brunt of the blame, because real talk, Antonio Pierce, the coaching staff is the reason why we are 2-6. If the Raiders had average coaching, and I mean this, average coaching, we're 4-4 right now. And you can't tell me otherwise. Let's go to, wow, that one's a tricky name, man. The most important position in sports is quarterback. I've been a diehard Raider fan for 40 years. Honestly, if there's tanking, I'm okay with it.
You look great for 40.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, that D does not look like a D in that name. I'll tell you what, man. That almost got me. Can we make that D at least a capital D if that's going to be the name? I know that quarterback probably is the most important position in all of sports, right? Like, you could say certain pitchers, maybe a center fielder, shortstop. In basketball, maybe right now it's, I don't know, a point guard, shooting guard. But quarterback is by far, I think, the most important position outside of maybe, I don't know if there's other sports that I don't follow as much, like soccer. However, though, we need to be able to find a quarterback. And if the Raiders have Jaden Daniels right now, I think that this team would look totally, totally different. I heard some knucklehead by the name of Lube Gehrig in the comments section earlier talking about, like, oh, Cliff didn't come here because of he saw what the Raiders were doing and then he bailed out. That's not true at all. Cliff wanted a 3-year deal. Raiders were only offering 2. On top of that, Cliff wanted to work with Jaden Daniels. As soon as Cliff found out that Jaden Daniels to the Raiders was about a 1% chance of happening, he jumped ship and he went to the Commanders, to a team that he knew was going to end up landing that guy. You got to be able to get a quarterback in the NFL, no doubt about it. But also, if you're Antonio Pierce, you got to be able to build a competent offensive staff. I don't like saying I told you so, but I think every Raider fan here is so angry at the current situation because for months we were yelling, Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, you can hope, and in the offseason you can hope a lot, right? Like, you can hope that those guys are going to be able to get it done. But there's no way, there's no way anybody could have looked me dead in the eyes and said that I am ecstatic that Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are the Raiders quarterbacks. Because if you did, you're lying. Let's go to Thugador. I don't know which one is worse, the offense this season or the last season. It's the offense this season. Like, I know the Raiders had Jimmy Garoppolo and Brian Hoyer and Aiden O'Connell last season, but that trio of QBs is worse than Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. One of the ways that I know how bad Luke Getsy is and how bad this offensive staff is when you look at a player like Minshew, who has bounced around the NFL his entire career. He was on 4 other teams with different OCs, different head coaches, and has always looked at least decent enough to get the job done. Last season in Indianapolis on a team that actually I think has less talent than the Raiders do right now. Yes, that offensive line is better than this current offensive line, but as bad as what Minshew looks right now, he's never been less confident. He's never been turning the ball over like this in his life. He said it himself. But sometimes you got to compare apples to apples, and comparing Gardner Minshew his entire career to the Gardner Minshew that we're seeing this season is just so different.
So,
let's go to John Rodriguez. Mitch, once a Raider are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, then AP will take out all starters for the rest of the season. That's just not going to happen.
No chance.
I mean, they're going to continue to play their guys as they should continue to play their guys. The only thing that I think technically would happen is you'll start seeing some of the younger players step up. But for guys that are going to be free agents next season, like Trevon Merrick, Nate Hobbs, Robert Spillane, Divine Diablo, Adam Butler, the Raiders have a laundry list of free agents. They're not going to say you can sit me. They're trying to get paid next year.
Yeah, and as stupid as it sounds, teams look at the base level stuff of what were your stats last season. And if you have a chance to get if you're a receiver like Jacoby Myers and you have a chance to get 20 more catches in a season,
sure,
get to 1,000. I mean,
I bet you those guys also have incentives in their contract.
The difference between you getting 600 yards and 900 yards, that's the difference in millions of dollars that you could get in a contract.
Millions upon millions of dollars, no doubt. Rebel, is Minshew better than Daniel Jones? Marsh is mad. I mean, I'll say this. I would rather have Gardner Minshew on his current contract than Daniel Jones on his. But I do think Daniel Jones is a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew.
Care to comment?
Oh, man, that's like asking if I want to kiss my brother or my weird uncle on the lips.
Marsh, he just decided to do both.
Yep. Marsh is like, I can't wait for my family reunion.
Marsh is like, luckily, my uncle is my brother.
Yikes. Oh, man. Let's go to Rich. So Minshew for Richardson, though. Who says no? I'll
Mitch.
say I think a lot of people, I knew I was going to get this question today. I tried to tell people that Anthony Richardson was going to be really bad in the NFL.
Everybody but Coop. Coop was big on Anthony Richardson.
I mean, he's a great athlete, but what drives me nuts, though, is Why do the Indianapolis Colts throw a quarterback like Anthony Richardson out onto the field, a QB that they know needs probably 2 to 3 years at least to be able to develop, and then they get mad that he's not developing the way that they need him to develop? Like, if you go out and get Richardson, you need to take the Jordan Love path.
But, I mean, I don't know if he's even the guy.
Oh, Christ, no.
If you're going to take yourself out of the game.
I'll admit that's a very weak mindset where I promise if Anthony Richardson was a member of the Raiders, tell the story.
If you missed it, it was 2nd and goal from the 20. Anthony Richardson, great play. He shrugs off a sack, runs it for about 6 yards, gets tackled. After the play, he taps his helmet and he's like, sub me out, sub me out. And everybody's like, oh, I guess Anthony Richardson got hurt. And he was in the next drive. So then after the game, reporters asked Richardson, they go, were you injured? What happened during that, when you got subbed out on 3rd and goal?
3rd and goal.
A very important play for your team. And he goes, oh, man, I was just tired. I was just really tired after running around. So I needed a quick little break.
If your quarterback's willing to do that, and I bet you he was tired. Maybe he was tired.
Could you imagine?
That's quitting on your team.
Could you imagine going to our bosses and being like, hey, I know I have a live show at 3, but I'm actually going to take a 15-minute nap. I'm a little tired.
I know one guy that used to do that here. He's no longer here. But besides that, that's weak mentality. When you're the quarterback, sometimes you just got to be able to suck it up. I don't know how many timeouts Indianapolis had, but you should have called a timeout before you subbed yourself out in 3rd down and goal. But also, Joe Flacco, 3rd down and goal, gives that team a better chance to win, probably.
Oh, I mean, no, it was 3rd and goal. He was cold. He had no chance to warm up, so they literally just handed the ball up the middle for a gain of 2.
Oh, yes, I don't know.
Because it's like he wasn't ready. It was out of nowhere. He's like, sub me out.
If the Raiders wanted to trade for Anthony Richardson, I'm not kidding you when I tell you this, the only way that I would do this type of offense right here is I would do true 12 personnel with 6 offensive linemen, and you put your 2 tight ends out there, you got your 6 offensive linemen, your quarterback, your running back, and then put 1 receiver out on the field and run honestly, a Wildcat style of offense. But our offensive line's not good enough to do it.
You got to be a veteran. You got to have a smarter mindset if you're Anthony Richardson. If that's the case, pretend like you're injured.
Yeah.
Lie.
Lie longer.
Lie longer.
Lie longer.
I saw you wearing that blue shirt. Yep, I stabbed him.
Yep, I stabbed those 2 people.
Just lie for longer. Say that you're hurt.
Do you or do you not know Dookie shoes?
Why would you not just say, yeah, I tweaked something. I went back on the field. I'm a man, so I was able to do it. No.
I mean, I seen them.
You were like, I'm Tywood.
Yep. Unbelievable, man. Let's go to Esco. I think we already got this one, unless you sent it again. He's like, I really want Mark to sell this team. Really, really bad. Noah, hey, Mitch and Chuggs, talked about the Texans maybe trading for number 16. Can you guys agree on what that trade would look like if that trade were to happen?
Mitch told me it's not happening.
I don't think it's going to happen because, what, you said for a 7th?
No, I was kidding. I would say for a 5th.
See, I would say if I'm the Raiders, I would want at least a 5th. Now, I'll tell you this. After seeing the trade that went down today around Dionte Johnson where they swapped a 6th and a 5th, I don't think that the Raiders would get a 5th-round pick for Jacoby. And because everybody knows that this team is probably going to be selling at the deadline, maybe they do, maybe they don't. The only thing that's going to help out Myers is he's got such a good relationship with that team. And there were a few players that talked about when Devontae Adams quit to make Jacoby one of the captains because of how much, how well respected he is inside of that room. I would say that it's probably a 6th-round pick for Jacoby, but I want to be able to keep Myers on this team simply because I do think that he's a good safety blanket for a young rookie quarterback next season. And if we have a Jacoby, a Brock Bowers, then to me, we just got to find one other piece / we can help build that offensive line. But I'd say you probably get a 6th-round pick at the absolute most right now for Jacoby. Let's go to my man, Raider Nation Adventures with Jay Cino. Brother, it's been a minute. Knowing how much Mark Davis loves money, do you think we are targeting Shedeur Sanders just to pique the interest in Dion coming to Vegas to coach? I don't think that the Raiders are interested in having Dion coach the Raiders, simply because I think Dion is more of just a college football guy. But I made a video probably 2 weeks ago, and it was around who do I think might have even been last week, who do I think is the most likely quarterback to be the Raiders' QB next season? I said Shedeur Sanders. And I said Shedeur Sanders for the money aspect side of it, because you can't tell me anything. Mark Davis cares about money more than anything else, and there's not a quarterback that's come out of the draft ever that's going to be able to raise the stock price of an NFL franchise quite like Shedeur Sanders. On top of that, though, Shedeur and Dion have made it very well known of what teams he would like to be able to play for. Shedeur works with Tom Brady in the offseason, has worked with him already. They have a very good relationship. Shedeur has a very good relationship with Mark Davis. Mark kind of joked about him coming, home just a few weeks ago. I have a video on Instagram out if you want to go check it out of why I think Shedeur is going to be the quarterback. But if I was a betting man right now, I would say the Las Vegas Raiders starting quarterback next season will be Shedeur Sanders. So how about this? Will Antonio Pierce be the Raiders head coach next season?
Or will it be Deion Sanders?
Or a no?
We're talking head coaches for
think
2025.
I think Deion would be a mistake. Deion and the way he coaches works in college. Like, him doing a lot of that stuff, I think, with NFL players would be a disaster. And maybe I'm wrong. He's done a good job building up that Colorado program, but I think his shtick is, I can get you to the league. And that only works in college football, obviously.
Because you're already in the league.
See, this guy, he gets it. When you got a red shirt on, you get things right away. Yes or no?
It's not red.
It's not?
No.
I don't know.
It's magenta.
I agree with that. I can get on board with that. I just know it's not pink. No from Raider Nation 405. Hell no on Deion from Jeremy Cole. Yes, but he shouldn't be from Esco 75. Can't get right. Hashtag Raiders to get your questions answered on the show is the comment. Hey, man, can't get right? I appreciate that. Helping out the audience. Helping out the audience. Raider Nation 405 says no. You know what? We got 950 people tuned in right now to this show.
And this is somebody who
Can we get some likes going? What's up, Kevin? AP needs another year to have the opportunity to get his quarterback. And OC, just remember who he wanted and how they're doing. Chuggs, speak on this, please.
I mean, to Kevin's point, how do you really evaluate a guy in AP when you don't have a quarterback? Which I get it, Kevin. And maybe this is a conversation to be had about Tom Telesco as well. But he had the offseason to make moves. There was plenty of moves for him to make. They just didn't make them. So the whole point of, he doesn't have a QB, he doesn't have an OC. He chose the OC.
Yeah.
Chose the QB, even though, I know he didn't want Jaden Daniels, but, there's 31 other teams out there that want Patrick Mahomes, but they got to make it work with whoever they have.
The way that I'll say this, and I've said this a few times on this show, the way that I evaluate Antonio Pierce, because I get it. It's hard to evaluate somebody based on quarterback play, OC, when you're a defensive-minded guy in the Raiders defense, as we all agree. Despite having a lot of injuries on defense, I still think the defense is playing some good football. Now, is that AP? Is that Patrick Graham? It still remains to be seen a little bit. But I'll say this. Everything that I expected from Antonio Pierce to be able to bring to the table that doesn't involve X's and O's, he's, I think, really failed at. Where we're one of the worst tackling teams in the NFL. That's on AP. We are fundamentally very weak. I think that we're one of the softest Raiders teams that I have seen in quite some time. We crumble in some of the biggest situations possible. Our offensive line has gotten significantly worse. Quite frankly, I can't really tell you a single area of the game where the Raiders, I feel like, have improved upon this season compared to last season. And a lot of that falls on AP, where I expected the Raiders to be a hard-nosed football team, to play very hard every single quarter, to be able to give it their all, and to be a very close group in the locker room. None of that's true right now. And that all falls on your head coach. And when I think that what I wanted in AP, he's fallen short on that. And I think a lot of Raider fans would agree with that. Drew, Ben Johnson is Gruden the first time he was hired by Al. You're saying like he's just going to be like a slam dunk? Where, like, I think Ben Johnson is this new age of fun, creative, offensive-minded coach that he creates plays every week, and you're just like, wow, that's one of the craziest plays I've ever seen. Where Luke Getsy looks like he's running the high school offense of just predictability. Ben Johnson is a guru. Ben Johnson gets in the lab. But what I love about Johnson and what I love about good offensive play callers, good coaches in general, they use their talent to the best of the ability. They don't just have a certain scheme like McDaniels did and just try to force everybody into that scheme. They try to build around. What I see right now Luke Getsy doing, he's not building around the strengths of this team. For you on first down and goal, ball at the 3, to run the ball directly up the middle, and then there was one, it was like a stretch zone play, which requires Andre James to be a power blocker, and Andre just gets pushed back every single time. Like after 8 weeks, you got to be able to make the adjustment and go, well, we haven't been able to do this at all this game. We haven't been able to do it all season, so why am I going to call it? Like Getsy just calls plays just to call plays, and that drives me absolutely insane. Coming up here live on today's show, how the Raiders can fix the offense. AP is going to get fired if he continues to do these things. And if AP is fired, let's look at some of the top head coach candidates in 2025. We got 950 people here on the show right now. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on those notifications. And hopefully you're ready for a fun show that's going to be a little bit controversial. There's going to be a lot of people that get upset about some of the things that I say today. I already know that that's going to happen. But I hope that we're able to sit down, have a respectable conversation like friends and family do, and know that when we leave here from today's show, we're all going to be friends tomorrow. Sound good? Hopefully it sounds good. You ready? You ready? Coming up right now, how the Raiders can fix their offense in 5 simple steps. How can the Raiders fix their offense in 5 simple steps? I'm glad you asked. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up here on today's show, I am going to tell the entire nation, if I was in that Raiders organization, how I would try to do my best to fix this offense. And the first step is the easiest step humanly possible, and it could happen right now. Quite frankly, I hope it does happen right now. It's firing Luke Getsy or demoting Luke Getsy. If you still want to be able to keep Getsy on the staff, that's fine. My bottom line is you got to take play calling away from him. There are so many other coaches that are better on the current staff right now that I would trust more than Luke Getsy, because through 8 games this season, I don't see how anybody could possibly be confident in Getsy. And I don't want to hear nothing about execution, AP. How about you got to execute and you got to do your job of getting rid of this clown show? Because I don't think Rich Scangarillo's a better guy. He's been fired everywhere he's been, but I think I might trust him right now. What do we have to lose? Luke Steckel, Joe Philbin. These 2 names down here, though, Scott Turner, Edgar Bennett. These are the 2 people that the Raiders need to consider giving them play calling duties, and I hope that they end up doing it after week 10, because if you don't end up doing it, AP, you're not going to have a job next season. That I can guarantee you. If you want the Raiders to fire Luke Getsy, hit that like button. I have been screaming from the rooftops, and I was pissed off when the Raiders hired Getsy, and some people are going to be like, Mitch, it's only 8 games into the season. When does that point happen where we're like, all right, it's only 9 games, it's only 10? When you know something's not going to work out, you need to be able to speak your voice. And firing Luke Getsy, I guarantee you, lights a spark underneath this offense. It's also going to make this offense much, much better. So I'm going to be honest with the nation here. If the Raiders do not plan on firing Luke Getsy, then they're going to have to do these 5 things. So I'm going to get into my other 4 steps here in just a moment. But if Antonio Pierce is going to sit up there at the podium and he's going to blame players based on execution, which the players do need to execute a little bit better, but I think everybody watching the show, every Raiders fan that's watched every game this season can confidently say that coaching is a major issue to why we're losing games. If Antonio Pierce is going to say, we're keeping Luke Getsy the rest of the year, then the Raiders need to do these 5 things. First thing that the Raiders need to do, because it's the only way that you're going to fix the offense, you need to start throwing broken dishes at houses. Somebody goes, what are you talking about, Mitch? Well, guess what? We're going to have to start figuring out ways to get lucky, because the only way we're winning with Luke Getsy is if we get lucky. So I found out in Denmark that people save their broken dishes throughout the year, and then they're going to throw them on New Year's Eve. So that's number 1 of how we're going to save this season and how we're going to be able to fix the offense if we decide to keep Luke Getsy. What about this one? Sweeping dirt away from the front door. AP, Getsy, I hope you're writing these down. I don't know if you guys knew this. In China, people end up sweeping dirt out their front door because they say that good luck comes in through the front door. So guess what? Let's start sweeping some of the bad luck out the front door. Another thing that the Raiders could potentially do, eat 12 grapes and wear red underwear. I don't know what type of red underwear you gotta wear, but eating 12 grapes right now sounds like a crazy enough idea where maybe it would work for Getsy. In Spain, midnight strikes on New Year's. Spaniards eat 12 green grapes for 12 months of good luck. I'm not gonna lie, I actually also do this with Alex and her family. But I don't know if I have good luck because I got to watch Luke Getsy try to call plays here for the Las Vegas Raiders. What about this? Hey, you got to wake up every morning and you got to say rabbit. Why do we have to say rabbit? Some of you are probably going to say, hey, I got a rabbit's foot. In the UK, shout out to Martin, it's believed that saying rabbit on the first day of the month is going to bring luck. If we're not doing all these things and keeping Luke Getsy, well, then we're just wasting some time because these things have just as much of a chance to help out the Raiders as Luke Getsy does. What about this one? Wear a surrogate penis. I know, it's a crazy thing that I just said, but there are some countries, especially in Thailand, it sounds like, it's believed that wearing a surrogate penis under their pants is going to help bring them luck. If the Raiders plan on keeping Luke Getsy as an OC, you better try to do all 5 of those things to bring in some good luck to the Silver and Black because it's not going to happen. So if you didn't like my good luck charms, how about you let me know down in the comments section. What do you do for good luck? This is going to be the pinned comment here on today's show. You're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and give me your answer because I'm going to tell you what I'm going to start doing on game days to bring a little bit of luck here to the nation. I am going to start wearing a surrogate penis carved from bone or wood because that's what people do in Thailand. Though, Chuggs, I don't know if you know this, I found out that it has to be less than 2 inches. Just so it doesn't get in the way. Crazy thing.
Life-sized.
Life-size surrogate penis. I am desperate. And if I got to wear something carved out of bone or wood that's 2 inches or less for the Raiders to actually go on the right path, I'm willing to do it. That's commitment to excellence. That's what showing up is all about. Coming up next here on the show, I'm actually going to tell you what it's going to take to save this Raiders offense or to at least fix it. But quite frankly, if we're going to keep Luke Getsy, we might as well try all 5 of those things because Luke Getsy has just proven to me that he is a waste of space and he is a waste of an offensive coordinator. I'll get into all those in just a moment, but today's show is sponsored by Gametime. $20 off your first purchase. Huge shout out to Gametime. And if you're planning on going to a Raiders game, I hope that you at least save a little bit of money and create some awesome memories while you do it. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, that's CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. If you do use Gametime, then I really need you to check out the Gametime picks. It makes it easier for you to be able to find the best deals, concerts, comedy, theater, and a lot more. I love the all-in pricing, which you can see when you get a ticket and then you go to checkout. You don't get hit with all these fees and taxes. It's exactly what you're going to be buying. And I think Gametime is the perfect app for people that are out in Vegas because there's so much to do out in Vegas. And quite frankly, if you're planning on going to a Raiders game on Sunday, maybe you fly in on Friday, maybe you fly in on Saturday, you might as well do something else that's going to put a smile on your face because right now this team, if Luke Getsy's still going to call plays, you're going to leave Sunday and you're going to go, man, oh man, oh man. I shouldn't have had all that Taco Bell because this place is shitty. Shout out to Gametime for sponsoring the Raiders Report. Let's go back to how the Raiders actually should try to fix the offense. Step 1, fire Luke Getsy. Step 2, I'm going to start playing Jackson Powers-Johnson at center. I know that right now at the time that I'm making this video, Andre James is currently dealing with an ankle issue. But even if Andre was totally healthy, I think that you would have to at least consider putting JPJ, the player that the Raiders drafted in the second round, at center. And I say that because he's physical, and the way that this team is still trying to operate its offense is they want to be physical. And I know AP wants to be physical. I know Telesco believes that winning in the trenches wins games. I believe winning in the trenches wins games. But the fact of the matter is we've seen 8 straight weeks. And Andre James is just clearly not strong enough, clearly not a good fit in this scheme that we're going to run. So if the game plan is to switch it up here a little bit, I'm going to put JPJ out at center to be a little bit more physical because I'll tell you this right now, if Getsy's just going to run the run, JPJ will 100% make our ground game better if he's in at center. So here are the options that I would use for the Raiders offensive line going forward. If you want to go with option A, which is Colton Miller, I'm going to put Thayer Munford at left guard to be a little bit more physical, simply because I don't want to see Cody Whitehair ever out on the field. JPJ at center, Dylan Parham at right guard, DJ Glaze at right tackle. If Dylan Parham is still unhealthy and if he is not able to go, well, then I'm going to swap Parham with Jordan Meredith, and this is going to be the offensive line that I go with going forward for the Raiders, because we got to be physical on the trenches, and Andre James gets pushed back. He has no anchor right now and just gets beat too often, and then the whole offensive line just ends up crumbling. So here you go. You call the shots. I'm talking tuna clock type of shots. Is it time for the Raiders to bench Andre James? Give me a yes. Give me a no. You're going to get hit with another YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down. Give me your answer. Yes or no. Is it time for the Raiders to bench Andre James? Because this has been a topic that I know that I have talked about in great lengths. This has been a topic that I have brought up a few times here on this show, and I've talked about it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. So should they bench Andre James? My answer is this. I do think that it's time for the Raiders to try to trade Andre James this week. The NFL trade deadline is November 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. If I'm the Raiders, I would take a 7th-round pick right now for James, and that's, I know, not a lot, but I would try to get that 7th-round pick because I think that's all a team's going to willing to offer you. If there are no takers, then you put him on the bench. If you want to see other players that I think could potentially be traded, I want you to check out this video. It's also going to be down in the comments and in the description of today's show. Don't worry, I'm not trying to trade away Max. I just talk about some of the top candidates. There's 10 players in here of dudes that the Raiders should either try to keep or the Raiders should try to shop. If you want to go check out this video, a lot of details also of the contract and the situation around Andre if the Silver and Black decided to move on from him. Let's go to number 3 here. More Brock Bowers opportunities. I don't understand how the Raiders can go away for Bowers for over 2.5 quarters. You want me to know how I know that Luke Getsy has 0 brain cells? How Antonio Pierce doesn't have the balls to go tell Luke Getsy to get Bowers the ball? When you're a tight end like Bowers, 3 catches, 39 yards, 3 first downs up against Kansas City Chiefs, and then you don't see another target your way for literally 2.5 quarters, that screams to me incompetent coaching. Because anybody that's watched the Raiders this season, anybody that follows the NFL knows that Bowers is the best tight end in the NFL and is the best player on our offense right now. And quite frankly, it's not close. If I'm Las Vegas, I'm trying to figure out every week how to get 10-plus opportunities for Bowers. Maybe that is a rushing attempt. Most of the time, it's going to be targets. If you're in the red zone and if Bowers doesn't get at least 1 target, fire your offensive coordinator immediately. To me, every conversion play, if it's 4th and goal, if it's 3rd down and 1, if you need to pick up a first down or get a touchdown, that play needs to involve Bowers. I'm not saying the ball needs to go to Bowers. I'm simply saying that if you're going to run motion near Bowers. If you're going to run motion, have Bowers run motion, because all eyes are on number 89 at all times, and the fact that we're not using him in the biggest plays of every single game makes me want to scream from the rooftops. Can we please get Brock Bowers involved more? It's not rocket science. And the fact that our coaching staff acts like it's rocket science is absolutely pathetic. Let's go to number 4 here. It's time to bench Gardner Minshew. And this one pains me also because I know I was somebody that advocated for Minshew to start. Though, if you go back and you watch when the Raiders signed Minshew all the way back in March, I sat up here and I said that I thought it was a dumb move, and it's not a move that I personally would have done. The reason why I'm benching Minshew is because Gardner clearly is a bad fit with Luke Getsy. He's clearly lost his confidence this season, and if I'm trying to win games, I'm going to go with Desmond Ridder until Aiden O'Connell is healthy. If Desmond Ridder ends up winning a game or 2, then maybe you decide to stick with somebody like, Desmond instead of going over to Aiden. Have an open competition. But the other reason why I'm doing it is this. The Raiders clearly don't trust Gardner Minshew. If you're going to get 1st down and goal, ball at the 3, and decide to run it 3 straight times right into the center of the defense, sure, you're running away from Chris Jones on one of the attempts, but you haven't been able to run the football at all. Teams know that the Raiders don't trust Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew knows that the Raiders don't trust Gardner Minshew. And Minshew goes out there so often with his tail between his legs, his ears down, like a sad puppy dog. And I know that we want to call him guard dog, But he looks like if I was trying to rob a place and that was the guard dog, I'm going to go back in and get some more. We need dogs on the field. And Gardner is not that guy because Getsy doesn't believe in him, and he's a bad fit in this offense, and he's a bad fit behind this offensive line. Let's go to the final reason here. Raiders got to start playing with nothing to lose. You're 2-6, guys. And one of the most infuriating sequences of plays, and believe me, there's been plenty of them this season. And I mean from the Raiders back in week 1, ball at the 43-yard line, you decide to punt because you don't trust your offense. Or this past week where Antonio Pierce said we were trying to, kill the clock a little bit and we were trying to, they act like they're not trying to score. If you're the Raiders, you're 2-6. What do you have to lose? Throw the ball down the field. Let's stretch the plays. Let's do some crazy shit. I don't know if putting Thayer Munford out at wide is crazy what I want, but the offense is too vanilla. The Raiders play every single week like they're afraid to score points. And I jokingly said this before. It almost looks like AP tries to cover a bet instead of actually going out there and trying to score points. But the Raiders need to do something different. What you've been doing for 8 weeks, it's not working. Play like you got nothing to lose. Because if you continue to play like you are, you're going to lose everything. Sometimes you got to take risks in life. Sometimes you got to take risks in football. Even if you think you got the right guys to be able to do the job, it's what you're doing right now is not working. So the Raiders got to play like they have nothing to lose. Because when you play like you have nothing to lose, sometimes you end up winning. Look what the Carolina Panthers did up against the Raiders back in week 3. That was a team that played like they have nothing to lose. And sometimes when you play like you got nothing to lose, when your back's up against the wall, has anybody ever tried to go after a dog with their... Have you ever tried to go after a dog when they're backed into a corner? That turns into a pretty vicious dog. We need that type of mentality if this team has any chance of winning any more games this season. Do you want Antonio Pierce to be the Raiders coach next year? Give me a yes, give me a no, because that's going to be a huge talking point here on today's show. If you haven't already voted at the live poll, please make sure you do so, because right now I see 44% of the votes say yes, 56% of the votes say no. Alex is going to go with a no. Anthony Hernandez says no. Yoda Jenkins says no. We got Tropical Remy, no. Brandon Eggins, no. I don't know if I see a single yes, so I'm kind of interested in how some of these votes are up top, because we got 1,500 votes up there. Savior says, I don't know. Yes from Can't Get Right. Michael Core is going to go no. Tony says yes. Rebel Spamming 69. I want Antonio Pierce to be the head coach next season, but he's got to show me that he deserves the job. And right now, AP has shown me that he does not deserve the job, that he is in way, way over his head. And I hate saying it, but watching AP try to coach for 8 weeks, it's the truth. If you showed me right now, and I know it's not as easy because sometimes we can do it with NFL players, blind test when you show stats next to stats. If you created a sheet of, here's what the Raiders coaches did this year, and here's what the Raiders coach did last year, and you did a blank test, I think you'd be surprised how similar AP is to Josh McDaniels in terms of just very bad game management.
Technically, Antonio Pierce does come from the Josh McDaniels coaching tree.
Technically. You're not wrong.
Right? Like, Bobby Slowik comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're not wrong in that. Right? And some guys are just not cut out to be head coaches, and that's okay. I'm not saying AP's a bad coach. I'm saying AP's a bad head coach. That's a very big difference. Like Antonio Pierce as a linebacker coach, I actually think AP was built to be a linebacker coach. Somebody who's just going to give you a lot of energy, a lot of emotion, and that's the AP we need. The AP that we saw back in March, April, May, the guy that when he stepped up to that podium brought nothing but confidence. And he brings no confidence.
I would say that everybody's saying, Dan Campbell. They gave Dan Campbell time. The difference is Dan Campbell actually had prior head coaching experience before going to the Lions. He had a ton more coaching experience at higher levels than AP did before taking up the mantle of the Lions head coach. AP was an assistant at Arizona State, a coach of a high school team, and the linebackers coach for the Raiders. That's a huge difference than Dan Campbell, who was already an interim head coach I believe, in 2 spots for the Saints and the Dolphins.
Sure.
Tight ends coach for multiple seasons for both those teams. Like, I think it's a huge difference between Dan Campbell and Antonio Pearson. Just saying, like, oh, well, they both suck in the beginning, so he's going to be Dan Campbell is just like an easy cop-out to be like, oh, well, I want to blind faith give him another year.
I think the biggest difference also is the Lions showed that they fought for Dan Campbell. The Lions also made improvements where you can't say that the Raiders have made any improvements this season. And I challenge people out there. Give me 3 areas, because I might be able to say Jacorian Bennett's playing better than he's ever had in his entire career. But outside of that statement right there, and Brock Bowers has done a good job, no doubt about it. Where have the Raiders improved last season to this season? Let me know down below, because I don't know if I can really think of any. And when you're a head coach, like, you're expected to do better. And I don't want to bring up these points because they're not football related, but I do sometimes think being a head coach is almost like being a CEO of a business, or you're kind of expected to be able to run and put your hands in a lot of different hats. Is that a fair assessment? Give me a Y for yes, N for no.
Yeah.
When you look at some of the things in past business that Antonio Pierce has done, like the car dealership thing, failed at that miserably.
Well, and
look at the allegations against him at Arizona State right now.
I mean,
failed at that miserably.
Regardless of all of that, people are saying, "Oh, but everything is blind faith." Yeah, of course. You can't see the future, but there's calculated risks. There's a lot of, looking at what people have done in the past, looking at their, trajectory and seeing where they could possibly go. It's blind faith, but it's also a calculated risk. Keeping AP is much more of a calculated risk, and there's not a lot of upside to the downfall that you see right now. Like, what is the upside if you keep AP? The team is going to work harder next year?
How can you say that? Because I think they almost look less motivated this season.
Like, is he going to be able to, scheme anything up better? I mean, he's not an X's and O's guy.
Do you trust Antonio Pierce to be able to build an offensive staff when he failed miserably this time around? And if people are like, oh, but you don't know if AP built that staff. I want my head coach to build the staff. I want my head coach to build his staff.
Frankie, you're right. We did want AP. We were saying, at a certain point, you can hire AP. I think it was a decent idea because the team, I thought, was fully behind him. I thought the offseason they were going to be able to make certain moves. They didn't do those things. And the biggest thing in sports, the biggest things that winners do in sports and winning organizations do is cut ties and realize when you make a mistake. Not keep on with the mistake. Look at the New England Patriots in their heyday. Look at some of the best teams in the NFL. They'll make a draft pick and be like, you know what? 2 years from down the road, he's not good. He's not going to fit with us. And they can realize and say, hey, I made a mistake. Let's pivot and go somewhere else.
People are like, you got to blame Telesco. Telesco absolutely deserves a lot of blame too. Like, I know people are like, oh, we should have brought back Jacobs, which I see down in the comments. I mean, I think that's stupid. Like,
shout out to Mike Kimber.
Bringing back Josh Jacobs would have been one of the worst moves the Raiders could have possibly made this offseason. Giving it back $15+ million behind this offensive line, it would not have made a difference. Like, Jacobs would have been worse this season than he was last season.
It was a difficult spot for the Raiders this offseason, and the reason I believe that we said, go ahead and hire AP is because the other option was Harbaugh. But the thing is, you weren't choosing Harbaugh. Harbaugh was choosing you because he had the Chargers. He had possibly the Bears that were looking at him at hiring him as a head coach. So it was up to Harbaugh. So if you said no to AP and you went in on the Harbaugh sweepstakes, it wasn't a guarantee that you were going to sign him. It was a guarantee that AP was going to sign to be the head coach of the Raiders. Nobody else was going to hire AP this offseason. But with John Harbaugh, that's not a slam dunk that you're hiring him either. He basically got to choose where he went, and he was saying, which I don't believe this because of the sanctions and stuff that was going to go down, but He was saying, oh, I'm ready to stay at Michigan for another year.
Yeah, and I always knew that Harbaugh was going to come out of Michigan. Our boss, he's very tied in with Michigan, but I think at the end of the day, you got to be able to trust Antonio Pierce to not only build a staff, but to be able to build a team that looks like it's getting better. And there's no way that anything that we've seen this season makes me feel like that Antonio Pierce can do any of those things.
And I just don't know if the talent evaluation is there. I mean, obviously, they wanted to get Jaden Daniels, and if they were able to do that,
did they want to get Jaden Daniels because they love the talent or because AP's just friends with him? You know, and I think like that's the other part of it where I thought Jaden was going to be exact. I'll admit, I didn't expect Jaden to be as great as what he is right now, but I'm also not shocked that he is this freaking good. But like, sooner or later, you just got to look at the moves that the Raiders made this offseason. Does Telesco deserve blame? Absolutely. I didn't really want the Raiders to hire Tom Telesco. But then I also sit back and I brought this up in a show that I did earlier in the week, maybe it was last week, of like, there's also that part of like, why are we surprised that the Raiders offense is this bad? And when you bring in Tom Telesco, who was fired from his last job, Rich Scangarillo has been fired from his last 6 jobs, Luke Getsy was just fired from his last job. Like, we're talking about trying to put together an offensive staff with a bunch of just castaways, a bunch of shitty people, and whether that's, AP Telesco or whatever, but Antonio Pierce was a part of the hiring process when they brought in Telesco. Then it was AP and Telesco to bring in the offensive coordinator. AP and Telesco decided to bring in Luke Getsy. Like, all of those things fall on AP's shoulders because he's the head coach.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that it goes. He's the head coach. If you're the parent and you get a kid and you get a dog and they're acting up, that's going to fall on you. It's just the way that it goes, man. You're expected to do a whole lot.
We do have some super chats to answer really quick before we get into our next Segamunte.
I like it a lot. Reminder, hashtag Raiders Super Chat to get those questions, comments on the show. Esco, Mark Davis is to blame. He hires based on nostalgia and feelings, i.e. Gruden, AP and his lowrider. Stop looking at the rear view mirror. We need young, innovative minds pushing the organization forward. I agree that the Raiders need young, innovative minds. This has been something that I've been screaming from the rooftops that the Raiders need to be able to go out and get. I was hoping that AP was the right man for the job based on what we saw as the interim head coach, but he needed to be able to bring in an offensive coordinator. I would be curious to see what the Raiders look like with Cliff Kingsbury as their OC. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'll say Cliff Kingsbury and Gardner Minshew is probably not that much of a difference compared to what we've seen, but Mark Davis obviously deserves a lot of blame too. Let's go to Raider Josh. Prayers for Tre'Davious Ward's family, RIP. Yeah, if you guys haven't seen this story, it's probably one of the sadder stories. 1-year-old daughter of Tre'Davious Ward, she passed away today, and I cannot even imagine the gut punch that is to that entire family, the entire 49ers family out there. And I know that, Raiders, Niners are rivals, but at the same time, a beautiful 1-year-old girl, she lost her life today, and life just shows, man, how cruel it can truly be. Raider Josh, give you a lot of credit for sending that in. Daniel, Raiders have no QB1, no RB1, no wide receiver 1, don't even have a home field advantage. Blaming the coaches is low-hanging fruit. I disagree with that. Like, the coaches went out and got the quarterback. They went out and got Gardner Minshew this offseason, did they not? They had opportunities to draft other quarterbacks in the draft. They just didn't do so. Now, when I say that, they didn't have the guys in round 1, but there were some other quarterbacks that maybe you could have got. I don't think that they should have went out and got them. No RB1. You're not wrong, but that's also because you believed, not saying you, but the Raiders believed in Zamir White. You had a wide receiver 1. He quit on the team. And I know that you don't have a home field advantage, but that you can't even really blame on AP. That's just people wanting to come to Las Vegas, and ticket prices are super high. Blaming the coaches, I think, is very, very fair to do. And quite frankly, I don't know how that people don't blame the coaches. I think it shows me incompetence when people are saying what you're saying right here. And Daniel, you're probably a stand-up dude, and I hope that you don't take that to heart, but I'm always going to give you my honest opinion. And I think what you're saying right here is a very soft thing to say, and I think people that have this type of mindset are probably going to have a really difficult time in life.
And I just think it's easy to give excuses on a lot of these things, but it's like AP and Telesco had the ability to make moves this offseason. They had a lot of cap space that they didn't use.
Yeah.
They had moves in the draft. They didn't trade up, really. They had quarterbacks that they could sign. They had quarterbacks that they could have traded for. They had trades that could have been made. They had other things that they could have done to move around the roster. They could have signed a running back. Derrick Henry signed for 2 years, $9 million. There's other running backs that they could have signed and other moves they could have made in free agency to circumvent some of these problems you're seeing. So to be like, oh, well, it's all, it's unfair for AP and it's unfair for these guys. Well, it's part of the reason that they sat on their hands and didn't do shit this offseason.
Right? Like look at the very first moves the Raiders made. The very first moves that people usually make in the offseason are the moves that they think are the most important. The first thing they did, I think that was like a big move forward, was they re-signed Andre James to a 3-year contract. Andre James has been an absolute flop. Christian Wilkins has been good. I know that the injury happened, but based on the performance Christian Wilkins was doing, I think that he was good. Maybe not exactly what the money was worth, but Wilkins is a really solid player. The next move they made was going out and signing Gardner Minshew to the contract that they did. When you look at a lot of the moves that the Raiders made this offseason, a lot of the moves, unfortunately, were bad moves. And that falls on your head coach. It falls on your GM. But it also falls on your staff because you're going out and getting those guys because you feel that they fit what you're trying to do. And the fact that the Raiders don't have an identity tells me that they didn't know what they were trying to do. It's blindly just throwing darts at a board, and it shows up every single week. Every single week. Noah, I don't know about you guys.
Oh, before I forget, also, Patrick B., I just saw you in the chat. Patrick, hit me up on Instagram, right?
Caden, it's not a loop. I don't know about you guys, but I think sweeping out the dirt from the back door can be a good idea as well.
Patrick, hit me up on Instagram. I got to pick up my costume today for Thursday night. Ooh. And you were the MVP of my show. So I need your help. I'm going to go to Spirit today after work. I need you to FaceTime me or message me on Instagram so we can, FaceTime message so you can help me pick out the costumes.
Or Patrick B, have Savannah, because Patrick doesn't really use Instagram all that often. He usually has Savannah message me on IG.
Kool-Aid. Okay, I'll try for the Kool-Aid Man. If there's a Kool-Aid Man costume there, I will try.
I mean, maybe we might be able to overnight one. It will be tough. Worst case scenario, get the biggest red shirt that you can possibly find and cut out holes where your nipples are and just have your nipples out.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. I think actually everyone would say, oh, yeah. Noah Santana, real talk, man. I appreciate you. We got a few more supers to get to. James Guevara, if you demote Getsy to water boy, 100% you'd be drinking tap water. Time to cut bait. Also, AP judgment has got to be in question, right? I do question AP's judgment because I went back and I watched the film, and I've watched the film of every game this season for the Raiders. And I just don't quite understand how AP, and there are certain things when you watch the film, it does fall on execution. There's no doubt about it. There are definitely certain things. But then there's also so many other instances where you're like, how is that the play call here? How is that the formation here? What the hell are we doing right here? Why are we calling a timeout at the 2-minute warning? Why are we not trying to score against Kansas City when we got 2 timeouts a minute 57? Like, those things are also execution on the coaching staff. And there are certain things that the Raiders players could do better, but if I'm a Raiders player and I'm sitting there and I'm going, holy shit, this coaching staff might be worse than the one we had last season. I mean, that's demoralizing when you see that week after week after week. And I think right now you're seeing a lot of players, and I know there's some players frustrated. We're going to talk about it in the next segment coming up here. And there was one Raiders player, he's no longer a part of the team, that was liking messages on Facebook and liking posts on Facebook. I've had multiple Raiders fans send me these of this guy liking messages to fire certain coaching staff members. Like, when you get guys that start to do that, that just means that the boil is starting to really boil over, and there's a lot of people just frustrated. Let's go to Victoria B. I really only think Getsy came here to keep Tay happy. Now look at us. In my opinion, AP isn't going anywhere. He's the brand and MD's head and makes him money. You want to know something crazy? I know how much money the Raiders have been making based on ticket prices, and their ticket sales are going down, and Mark does care about the bottom line. But I'm telling you right now, if this is the product that's on the field and it's going to continue, the Raiders are going to lose out on a lot of money, and they're going to lose out on that because of people not believing in Antonio Pierce. So I actually completely disagree that AP is going to make this team more money. I think AP is going to end up losing Mark Davis millions upon millions of dollars, because I know that the Chiefs fans took over the stadium last week, and that's hard to watch. And I know that eats away Mark Davis. but I've also seen the projected ticket costs, projected ticket sales for the next whatever many home games the Raiders have. Mark's going to be really upset about those numbers. But if you're a Raider fan sitting here, you're going, I'm not surprised at all based on how expensive the tickets are and based on the product. I mean, Jeremy and I, we were looking at Gametime the other day on how much cheaper the tickets are this year compared to last season. Watch to see how far those ticket prices drop. That's going to piss off Mark
Especially,
Davis.
I would say if you want to go to a Raiders game this year and you're like, you know what, these ticket prices are out of control. I don't know if I can, I don't know if I can swing going to a Raiders game because it's so expensive. I would say if you're able to, go out to Vegas, wait till the last second, and I guarantee you these next couple home games, around 30 minutes before kickoff, maybe just go to the tailgate, and if anything, you just have a good time.
Yep.
Look on Gametime. I guarantee you 30 minutes before kickoff, you will find tickets under $100. Like right before game time.
I'm not going to make that promise.
I think around game time, there will be enough, maybe not this next game, but later on in the year.
Well, the next home game for the Raiders is November 24th. Under 100 is pushing it, but I will say this, you would be shocked on how low those tickets get.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt. Raider, what's up, man? It's a bad look to fire AP at the bye week. However, if the Raiders are in a spot to draft Sanders or Ward, anyone would want to come coach here. AP coached DA the wrong way. He isn't a fit for the NFL. I'll say that you don't fire Antonio Pierce this season. You let AP finish off the season, so I agree with you there. I do think that if the Raiders end up with the number one pick, you will get a guy like Ben Johnson. He will 1,000,000% be interested in this job because I know there's a lot of coaches that want Sanders and Ward. AP coached DA the wrong way. I don't agree with that at all. I think Antonio Pierce coached Davante Adams like an adult and like a professional, and Davante wanted to put himself ahead of the shield, and AP wasn't about that, and Davante got his captain status stripped away from him, and that's voted on by the players. So, this was something that was going on for a long, long time. I do think that AP, the way he coaches, if he wanted to be another head coach again, first off, should probably try to go back to high school or maybe a low-level college program. Could be an interesting thing for AP. But then, even that being said, I don't know if a college team would ever give him an opportunity with the allegations that are against him right now at Arizona State. Let's go to Herman. Jay, you're the new co-owners of the Raiders, Renz and Chuggs. What would you two cats do in the first offseason by free agency draft, signing cut wave players, vote for Renz and Chuggs in 2028? Well, I hope we don't have to wait that long. Hopefully this would be Renz Chuggs 2025. There's so many areas of this question. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'll just say this. I'm going to draft a quarterback in round one. I'm going to invest on my interior offensive line. I'm going to invest in the offensive line in general. But what the Raiders really need to be able to evaluate is who they decide to bring back. Because when you look at the amount of players, I'm trying to bring back Adam Butler. I'm trying to bring back Trevon Merrick. I'm trying to bring back Robert Spillane. I'm trying to bring back Nate Hobbs. There's a lot of players. That's a lot of extra money. And I don't know if I'm going to concentrate as much in free agency in terms of trying to bring back some of those core guys. But you have probably somewhere around $108 million in salary cap space.
If I'm the Raiders, my entire draft this year is centered around the offense and getting the offense going. Quarterback number one. Next pick should be a wide receiver. Then whatever the best player is from offensive line or wide receiver, tight end, not tight end probably because Brock Bowers, but offensive line or wide receiver, and then probably another offensive player, either lineman or wide receiver or running back. I think your first 5 rounds should be strictly offense if you were the Las Vegas Raiders this year.
Depending on who you lose in free agency or depending on who you lose in the offense.
I don't think it matters because on defense you have Christian Wilkins coming back.
Yep.
You have Max Crosby coming back.
Yep.
I mean,
Tyree Wilson
coming back. Hopefully, you're able to re-sign Robert Spillane. Those are the things that I would do in free agency to circumvent not drafting defensive players.
Right now, the Raiders would lose at the start of the season your 2 safeties, Merrick and Epps, both free agents. Then you got Jack Jones, free agent. Nate Hobbs, free agent. Robert Spillane, Divine Diablo, free agents. Adam Butler, free agents.
You have a lot of money to spend on the defense.
You do have a lot of money to spend.
Look what the Colts did with Andrew Luck. They went out, they drafted Andrew Luck. Their next picks were offensive line and wide receiver.
Yeah, it's what a predicament, huh,
I mean,
Herman?
you need an offense. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're going to who gives a crap about the defense next year? Because you have Max Crosby, and at least you have somebody who can help you do something, because this offense hasn't scored 20 points in the past 3 years. It seems like they can't even score 20 points. So it doesn't matter if you draft a good defense. It doesn't matter what the defense is. If you're focused on getting a quarterback, you do everything in your power, at least his rookie season, to make sure that quarterback does well. And I don't give a crap about the defense.
Yeah, I think the Raiders, which it's funny because I feel like last season, the year before that, it was, a lot of, we got to build the defense, got to build the defense.
This Raiders defense beat the Chiefs this year. The Raiders defense was outplaying the Chiefs offense during that game this past Sunday.
I mean, defense hasn't been the issue for the Raiders. I'd say the only game where I would question the Raiders defense at all this entire season was Week 3 against Carolina. Besides that, I don't see how you could possibly be upset by the way the Raiders defense has played.
And
maybe the Denver game.
You want that rookie quarterback to have a good rookie season.
Yep.
And then the next draft, you can worry about defensive players, look at that stuff. But you want to make sure that quarterback has every single tool that he needs to succeed his rookie season and give this fan base some hope. Even if you're losing games, if the offense is scoring more than 28 points, you're like, okay, fine. We finally have a base, some sort of base. And then you have Max Crosby on defense. So you're at least, I say with Max Crosby on defense, you're at least okay. You can at least do something on the defensive side of the football, but you need to change this offense because this offense hasn't been good since before Derek Carr got hurt.
Yeah. It's been tough, man. It's the offense needs to flip the script, and I also think the easiest way to build an offense, maybe to tell Mark Davis, like, hey, you want to make more money? Offense for ticket sales puts butts in seats. It does. It does. We've had a great defense. We have a great defense right now, and that's with the amount of injuries that we have. And the Raiders had a great defense last season. But if you literally can't score points, and not only you're legitimately one of the worst offenses. You go back and you look at the last 18 games, let's say, for the Raiders. 1.5 years. You're one of the worst offenses in the NFL.
Yeah. Caden, any chance that we can trade for AR-15? We kind of already talked about it. I think the consensus was a no.
If the Colts were willing to give Anthony Richardson to me right now for a 6th-round pick or later, I would consider it. But it's really hard to trade for a quarterback that can't pass the football. And I'm not surprised because I knew Richardson was just that bad of a passer and that raw. But, if you're the Raiders right now and you trade it for Anthony Richardson, you can't start him right now. If you're an organization that can sit on a QB for a year and a half because you have a legitimate starter, that should be a team that goes out and get Anthony Richardson. A team like the Raiders right now, unless you just plan on running Wildcat every single time, then that's a possibility. Yep.
Sir Chai, Diggs injured, trade Myers and James for a 5th and 6.
I mean, I don't think that you're going to get a 5th and a 6. I would say if you get a 6th-round pick for Jacoby, that's probably the value right now. And then Andre James, you'd be lucky to get a 7th. Maybe a 7th in the 2026 draft, but I would try to trade Andre James. I don't think that I would try to trade Jacoby Myers because he's still got 1 year left on his contract. $10 million next season's not a lot of money, but it is what it is. Sir Chai, appreciate the question. Got 2 more supers, and then we're going to get into our next segment here on the show, which is around Antonio Pierce is going to get fired if he continues to do these things. If we keep AP, get Shador, what OC should we get? Well, I would say go check out my offensive coordinator video that I put out on the show, I want to say last week, where I break down the top OC candidates that I would want the Raiders to go out and get. It's kind of in full detail, so I'd say go check that one out there, Noah. There's a lot of different OCs, a lot of in-depth stuff, which, because Noah's an OG here, let me look up this real quick. Raiders OC candidates. Which, if you guys ever have a question like this, don't be afraid to, what on earth just happened? I'll tell you this right now. YouTube is glitching on me. Oh, dude, that was weird. I've never seen YouTube do that before. I got it. If you guys want to check out the OC candidates that I have, they're in that sheet. They're based on this season, but then they're also based on next season as well. Sean, what, me?
Yeah.
I clicked on the video, and it literally just showed a whole bunch of code. Like, I'm not kidding. It was just like all coding. If you've ever coded the website, that's all it was.
It was that.
Yes. Actually, yes. That's literally what it looked like. Sean, fire AP and Getsy, promote Patrick Graham to head coach. I think Patrick Graham would be a better head coach than Antonio Pierce, but I'm not firing AP this season. Like, you're going to stick with AP for the remainder of the year. You're hoping that this team shows life after the bye week. You got to switch up something. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm not ready to jump ship yet on Antonio Pierce. I didn't really plan on doing one.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, that's on me if I left it in there. All right, y'all, we got 900 people here in the building. I think it's time to get into the next segment here on today's show. Also, if you don't know, today's David Zahn's birthday, so if you see Zahn down in the chat, show him some love, sing him happy birthday or two. I think he would definitely appreciate it. Coming up, Antonio Pierce is going to be fired after the season if these things continue. I'm going to tell you what they are. Also, Super that just came in. We'll get into that after this next segment. We got one more segment on top of this one, so we'll probably be here for another hour or so. If you want to get those questions, comments on the show, hashtag Raiders or Super Chat in order to do so. You ready?
Down the street, smoking
Mitch, AP is the first coach I want overseeing the development of a first-round quarterback. I don't think that you actually want that. Sponsor here, Chuggs, is PrizePicks, just so I know ahead of time. And here we go. Coming up, let's talk about Antonio Pierce and why I think he can get fired if he continues to do these things on today's show. Coming up here on the Raiders Report, Antonio Pierce will be fired after this season if he continues to do these things this season. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and I'm not afraid to tell y'all I wanted Antonio Pierce to be the head coach, but I'm also man enough to tell you that AP has not done a good job. I'm also man enough to tell you that I hope that we can turn this season around, but I also hope that we're able to get a quarterback, and I hope that the Raiders can get on the right path. But the reason why I want people to subscribe to this show is this. I want a head coach when he steps up to the podium and instead of blaming players, says, you know what, it is on me, on the coaches. I deserve a little bit more blame. And the reason why I wanted to make this show is because I was very ashamed that Antonio Pierce deflected and put a lot of blame on those players. But guess what? I know Raider Nation deserves better. I know Raider Nation shows up every day. And I can't sit up here and promise you that this Raiders team is going to start winning games. What I can promise you is this. When I'm wrong, I'll tell you when I was wrong. And right now it looks like I was very wrong to say that I want AP to be a head coach because he's clearly in over his head. But I also am going to show up here every single day. I'm going to give you my heart. I'm going to give you everything that I got because that's what the nation does and that's what y'all deserve. If you feel that, hit that subscribe button. So here's why Antonio Pierce, I think, is going to be fired at the end of the season. The number one reason, poor game management, and I didn't even know that you were going to put the headphones up there. Maybe I should just do this whole segment like this right now. But Antonio Pierce and the poor game management, we've all seen it. Everybody has seen it, and it's not something that has just happened over the course of just a week or two. I mean, we talk about multiple times, and I'm actually going to challenge the nation here down in the comments. Tell me one time this season where you go, I can't believe Antonio Pierce did that. Because I'm talking about from week one, putting on the 43-yard line against the Los Angeles Chargers, to not trying to score the half right in that Chiefs game, calling a timeout at the 2-minute warning, lining up there, Munford out wide. I mean, the amount of times, and if I really sat down and I went through every single game and I wrote down how many times I go, I can't believe Antonio Pierce just did that, I bet I'd come up with 20 to 30 things through 8 weeks. Hell, it might even be more than that. But to me, Antonio Pierce coaches so scared, and he also doesn't call plays on offense. He doesn't call plays on defense. I wanted the Antonio Pierce that I saw at the podium, the guy that inspired confidence in his players and his coaching staff and his fan base. Right now, I got an Antonio Pierce coach that is afraid to step on the field and coaches like the Cowardly Dog cartoon. That's not the Raider way. Antonio Pierce has got his tail between his legs, and sooner or later, we just got to be able to say this. He's not a good head coach, and he's not a good head coach right now. I also know that I'm not the only one that sees this. I think one of the best film guys in the biz is Ted Wynn, and the Raiders' play calling and game management might be the worst in the NFL. If guys all over the internet see it, if fans can see it, how can the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders not see that Luke Getsy is a horrific play caller? I actually don't understand how it's possible, and it's getting to a point where it's as frustrating as when Mark Davis said last season, I like the way our coach staff is doing. When he said that he felt like Josh McDaniels was doing the right things. When I heard Mark Davis say that last year, I go, Mark, I don't even understand how the hell you can say that. When I hear Antonio Pierce saying that he doesn't feel like it's the coaching issue and that it feels like it's coming down to execution, I'm going, I don't even understand how that's humanly possible. And then the lack of blitz plan against Spags, it's just there's so many things that Antonio Pierce does on a weekly basis that is inexcusable, and how unprepared this team is week after week, and how badly coached this team is, and how they crumble in the biggest situations. That falls on Antonio Pierce's shoulders. So here's a God-honest question, and I want you to answer this with your head, not your heart. This head, please. Scale it from 1 to 100. What is your confidence level in Antonio Pierce right now? This is the pinned comment here on today's show. You're about to get hit with the YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and give me your God-honest answer, your confidence level in Antonio Pierce right now. My confidence level, this is supposed to be a 30, is a 30 out of 100, a 3 out of 10. And I say that because it was a 10 out of 10 when the season started. And every week I feel like it has gone down lower and lower and lower, and soon it's going to be at the floor. But the reason why I'm upset is because it does drop every week. And you want to be able to sit up here and go, my confidence level in my first-year head coach is going up. And if I'm Mark Davis, I'm going to evaluate that, where at the end of the year, you want to see a coach learn from his mistakes. You want to see a coach get better and better and better. AP hasn't learned from his mistakes. If anything, AP is starting to deflect even more on his mistakes, and he's not getting better and better. The team's not getting better and better. So the fact that my confidence level is growing less and less, I'd imagine there's some players that feel the exact same way, which just brings me to my next point right here. I know for a fact the locker room is losing faith. I'm not going to tell you players. I'm not going to tell you coaching staff. I'm not going to tell you anything besides the fact of this. If you called me a liar when I told you Raiders players are losing faith and want Josh McDaniels fired, then you're probably not going to believe me here. But I'm telling you right now, there are players, there are coaches on the Raiders that are starting to lose faith in Antonio Pierce. I'm not saying that anybody has told me that they want AP fired, because nobody has told me that. But I'm looking at all y'all dead in the eyes right now, and I'm telling you that Antonio Pierce's confidence level on the Las Vegas Raiders is drastically dropping. I'm also going to tell you that what AP said after that game against the Chiefs, it's not going over well right now in that locker room. Quite frankly, I think Antonio Pierce needs to have a players-coaches meeting to be able to smooth a few things out, because it's a little bit bumpy right now. I also know that Davante Adams quit on this team. Does Davante deserve a lot of blame in that? Abso-flippin'-lutely. The guy's a diva. The guy wanted to put himself ahead of the shield. But I also think Antonio Pierce needs to do a better job of being able to sit back and going, well, we also failed Davante, and we are failing right now a lot of the players on this team because we're doing boneheaded things over and over and over again. And I know Max Crosby wants to win. I know there's a lot of players in that team that want to win. Every player that I've talked to wants this Raiders team to win. We want this Raiders team to win. And if this team is actually trying to win games, that's a major issue to me, because they are really bad, unmotivated, poorly disciplined, and they don't inspire anything that would give me any type of confidence that we are moving in the right direction. And there's guys in that locker room and coaching staff that know that that's to be true. I got more reasons here of why Antonio Pierce could be fired if he continues to do the things that he's doing here. But before we get into that, I got to show some love to our sponsor here, PrizePicks, because quite frankly, they are giving me something to root for when I watch Raiders games. I'm torn. I'm like, do I want the Raiders to win, or do I want the Raiders to have a better draft pick? I am so torn on that, it's not even funny. But you know what I'm not torn on? Putting extra money in my pocket. And all you got to do with PrizePicks is choose more or less. It's truly that simple. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big-time payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. PrizePicks also is the best way to get action in sports in over 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. When you look at the lineup on screen right now, for those that do not know, we go live for every Thursday night football game. I'm going to be live here on Thursday night. Chuggs is actually going to be doing his own watch party on our Texan show, which I give him a lot of credit for being able to do and continue to grow his own brand. And here's the Chuggs' Texans lineup. I'm going to be here in a crazy, crazy outfit on Thursday, and I hope that you guys all tune into that. But really, he's going the more, and I kind of like the Tank Dell one. I also would go that, which is kind of sad because Stephon Diggs just tore his ACL. But the bottom line is this. If you're a Raiders fan and you're like, I just need something to root for, I feel you. Believe me when I tell you that. And PrizePicks is going to give you something to root for on Sundays, because waking up on Sundays and just feeling lost, unmotivated, I'm sick and tired of doing it, and I'm not going to do it anymore. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Make sure that you use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Antonio Pierce will be fired at the end of the season if he continues to show that the Raiders don't have an identity. I said that I hated the Josh McDaniels hiring because I'm always somebody that sits up here and goes, the team's going to take on the identity of the head coach. Your kids are probably going to take on the identity a little bit of, their mom and their dad, maybe their grandparents, whoever their role models are in their life. They always say like, oh, the dog takes on the identity of its parents. It's just, it's simple concepts of teams take on the identities of their leaders. And the Raiders are a soft football team. They are bad with fundamentals on both sides of the football. So I don't want to hear offense, defense. They are bad on both sides of the football fundamentally. The Raiders, they crumble in big-time situations. You know why? Because every time there's a big-time situation as well, I think Antonio Pierce has crumbled this year. Think about how the boneheaded false starts, the boneheaded penalties, just the boneheaded plays where you're like, this is the biggest opportunity in this game, and we're going to line up Thayer Munford out wide, and Gardner Minshew can't find anybody open, so he's got to scramble, and he fumbles. This team lacks confidence. This team lacks swagger. And when the Raiders hired Antonio Pierce, I go, this team's going to have confidence. This team's going to have swagger. This team's going to be well-disciplined. This team's going to be able to go out there and light a fire and play in big-time situations like they did last season. Being an interim head coach is like being a substitute teacher compared to a real teacher. Not everybody can do the job. It's like being a babysitter compared to being a parent. Not everybody can do the job, right? Everything that I thought Antonio Pierce was going to bring to the table as a head coach of the Raiders, he's fallen short on. And if you're going to be a head coach that doesn't call plays on offense, doesn't call plays on defense, doesn't have an impact in that type of regard during the game, what do you bring to the table? And that's my honest question of, I legitimately don't know what Antonio Pierce brings to the table in terms of value as a head coach. And the fact that I'm thinking that, there's players, coaching staff thinking that, the nation's thinking that, and we got to be able to face the facts of if this is what it looks like as Antonio Pierce the head coach, there's no way in hell you can bring him back next season. Let's go to the next thing, that Antonio Pierce will not have a job if Luke Getsy remains offensive coordinator, which this is kind of one of the ones that I'm just continuously scratching my head, because for AP to say that it's coming down to execution and wouldn't even entertain the idea of taking play calling duties away from Luke Getsy makes me question Antonio Pierce's IQ as a head coach. I've gone back and I've watched every play that the Raiders have had. I know a lot of other Raiders YouTubers have done it. I know a lot of film people have done it. I know a lot of people that are very well respected in this industry that have gone back and watched every single game and can't wrap their mind around how Antonio Pierce thinks Luke Getsy is doing a good job, because I'll tell you this, he is a horrific play caller. Not only is he a horrific play caller, I've never seen somebody legitimately not be able to make adjustments like Luke Getsy. We had Josh McDaniels last season. Josh McDaniels is a better play caller than Luke Getsy. And maybe we just got to script 70 plays because the Raiders look really good that first drive in the first quarter because those plays are scripted by Getsy. But good offensive coordinators, good coaches can make adjustments once teams adjust to you. We don't have coaches good enough to be able to do that. And the fact that you're failing to admit that this coaching staff is dropping the ball, that scares me the most because if he loses the players that helped him get the job, I don't see how you could possibly keep AP. One of the guys that I respect the most in this industry that cover the Raiders is my guy Sanjeet, and he is already at the point where they got to fire Luke Getsy and they need to fire Antonio Pierce today. He said this back on October 27th, and he wants to make Patrick Graham the interim head coach and let Scott Turner run the offense. I'll tell you this right now, the Raiders would be a better football team if both of these things happen. And if the Raiders are actually legitimately trying to win games, then they should do it. But I also know this. We're 2-6. If you don't have a chance to win a Super Bowl, then you might as well try to get something that changes your franchise. And the only way that we're going to change our franchise is getting a legit quarterback in the draft next season, top 5. I do want the Raiders to fire Luke Getsy because I think he's a terrible OC. And every day that you let Luke Getsy go out there on the field, that tells the nation, that tells all your players that you're not trying to win football games and that you think that the players are the problem and you don't think it's the coaching staff. I think it also is making players question your football IQ. It's making me, the nation, question your IQ because everybody can see that Luke Getsy isn't good at this job. If you don't want Luke Getsy calling plays anymore, I want you to hit that like button. I want the Raiders to show me that they actually give a shit because I give a shit. I know it's kind of a difficult situation because we all want that high draft pick. We all want that high quarterback. But you know what? The only reason why I'm kind of like on it is it wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders were somewhere around where they were picking 10 and Shador just tells all these people, because he's already done it, Dion has already said it, there's certain teams that he will and will not go to. What if it's already in bed like the Raiders are going to end up getting Shador Sanders? That's all I'm saying. If you want to check out my video that I did around some Luke Getsy replacements, it is this video right here on the channel. It's also available down in the comments in the description of this show, which you can go check out. I break down the top candidates that are on the Raiders, and then I also break down the top candidates for 2025 because there's just no way Luke Getsy can be a part of this Raiders team in 2025. And if the Raiders draft Cam Ward, if the Raiders draft Shador Sanders, and Luke Getsy's your OC, you might as well just throw away those players' careers because everything Luke Getsy touches turns to shit. Let's go to the final reason here of why Antonio Pierce could be fired. It is the Raiders don't show growth. You got to show growth. If you had a job right now and you were hired on day one, and the day you got hired at your job, and if the product that you put out there, your company lost money, or if you got worse and worse at your job, or if everybody in the business was going, I don't think this guy's very good at this job, you wouldn't be back next season. And when you look at the Raiders this season, they haven't shown any growth. And I continuously put this challenge out there of, tell me one area where the Raiders have improved upon from last season with Josh McDaniels to this season with Antonio Pierce. Even if you can give me one or two reasons of where they improved. The fact that it's really challenging to think about after a year where you had McDaniels, I think just goes to show you how sad of a head coach right now Antonio Pierce is. But I don't know where they've gotten better. Like, I don't know. And the Raiders' offensive coaching staff, I think, is arguably one of the worst in the NFL. Antonio Pierce got hired, and the Raiders basically didn't do any other head coaching interviews. They didn't. They had their eyes set on AP. AP was a part of the hiring process for Tom Telesco. AP and Telesco were part of the hiring process. I know they wanted Cliff Kingsbury. I know they wanted Jaden Daniels. But when those things didn't happen, they turned to Luke Getsy. AP has shown me that he can't build an offensive staff. So when you're a head coach that doesn't inspire confidence in your team, has a really soft football team, doesn't call X's and O's, you look at all those situations and you're going, I don't see how you can bring back a guy that has shown that he is bad at his job and plus doesn't show you any room for improvement. I mean, we got to be able to face the facts here. If the Raiders finish this season with a top 5 pick, and if Antonio Pierce is being legit, and I don't expect him to ever say, oh yeah, we're trying to lose games, we're trying to tank, and maybe that's the case. But if they are trying to win games and you finish with a top 5 pick, I'm sorry, but you have to move on from Antonio Pierce. Or, and I'll say this, maybe they decide to designate AP as like a sub role to still hang out with the team and give a head coaching job to another person, because it's not that I don't like Antonio Pierce. I love AP, and I wanted AP to work. We all wanted AP to work. but it is a business decision. And the business decision is in the idea of you can't put everybody or can't put anybody above the shield. Its commitment to excellence is just win, baby. And Antonio Pierce has failed on all of those fronts. A business decision is to move on from AP, especially if this team continues to play as bad as what they're playing. So what is your confidence level on Antonio Pierce? I gave you my answer. It was a 30 out of 100. The reason why I had 3 in the notes is because I was going to be 1 to 10. So I was like, it's all good. What is y'all's confidence level right now in Antonio Pierce? And be honest with me. What is it? Scale from 1 to 100. It can't be very high. And if it is, I wish I had your confidence. You're rocking something between your legs way bigger than mine.
With 31?
$1. That's basically what you just did to me. $1. I see Raphael's going to go with a 40. A 10 from Tropical.
It's just a tough scene. And it sucks because it's like in this
John says 85.
In this industry and like covering the NFL and covering sports, it's like it's hard to separate of like AP loves the Raiders more than almost any head coach that I've seen in a while.
That loves their team.
That loves their just loves the team,
Yep.
loves the job, like loves the fan base more than anything. But that's not enough sometimes, right? Like you can love your partner, you can be, have the most love that you can for your partner, but if you can't do basic things, like if you can't help out, if you can't provide, if you can't be a good partner other than like the love that you bring, like that doesn't mean anything. Like you're not a good fit for them.
Right? Like you could be the greatest lover in the world, but if you're a bad parent, if you don't help out around the house, if you don't help with bills, if you're just, a space, I think that's kind of tough, right?
And it sucks, like separating like the business and like the personal. Like personally, I think AP's awesome. Like I would go have a beer with AP. I think he's a really cool guy. I think he's a stand-up person. As a head coach, I wouldn't want him to head coach my team.
And like Antonio Pierce got the job because the Raiders showed, and we can agree, massive improvements last season. They were the least penalized team with Antonio Pierce. They showed that they could win games. They showed that they could beat the Chiefs. And, they went 5-4 with the team that Josh McDaniels kind of put together. So the hope was, if Antonio Pierce can go 5-4 and we can see these type of improvements with the Josh McDaniels team, what are we going to be able to see when Antonio Pierce takes over?
Yeah.
And since AP has been given the reins, it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good. What?
Zulik says, Jeremy got me in my feels. Got to go call my side chick now.
Azul. No. We don't need no side chick action. Got a few super chats to get to here on today's show. And then we're going to get into the final segment around some head coaching candidates for next season.
What people don't understand is that our problems come from the top. Mark Davis. If Mark were smart, he put us in position to lose from here on for the first pick, which is attractive to a new head coach.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I think the only way that you're going to get a Ben Johnson is if you have the number 1 overall pick. Legitimately. I think if you have the number 1 pick, you'll get Ben Johnson. Or if there's a certain quarterback where if Johnson is really high on, let's say, Cam Ward or Shador, and he knows that he has the opportunity to get that quarterback, that could attract him. I mean, it's going to come down to draft pick for the Raiders because they're going to have all the salary cap in the world. They have their draft capital.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to where they're picking in the draft. And I do think that the Raiders are going to be picking number 1. I think I would bet a stupid amount of money that the Raiders are going to be in the top 3 picks of the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Number 1 is tough. Top 3, I'll guarantee it. Noah, Mitch, we all know why that code came up. I promise you this, I don't look at that stuff on my work computer. Raider, I meant it. Would it matter if you fire AP now? If we have a top pick to draft Sanders or Ward, anyone would come coach for the Raiders. I would hire Slovic as head coach and hire Saleh as the defensive coordinator. Well, it's funny you brought up Bobby Slovic. We're going to talk about him here in a little bit. I like Bobby Slovic. I think he's a smart-minded coach.
He's having a down year.
Huh?
He's actually having a down year.
A little bit of a down year. I think, or down to what they expected. I think that's more than fair to say.
Yeah.
But I like Slovic's mentality, and I like the tree that he comes from. Though he's not in my top 3 of coaches that I would hire if I was
The only tough thing about Slowick is like he's obviously like Houston offense has been much better with him and CJ Stroud.
Yep.
The only hard thing with Slowick is that the run, and maybe it's because the Texans O-line has not been good. Their guards have been awful this year, like 2 of the worst guards in the NFL per PFF. What Kyle Shanahan and his tree does really well is run the ball. Like the Niners, the Dolphins, they run the ball really well. The Texans don't seem to run it. I mean, Joe Mixon has had good games running the ball, but it's not because he's getting schemed.
A lot of work.
It's he's honestly a top 3 back in the NFL right now because the amount of moves that he's done, like the amount of plays where he's behind the line of scrimmage and gains 4 yards where he should have lost 3 is outstanding.
Yeah.
I would love to see where he is right now in yards above replacement. I would say it's top 3 in the NFL.
Interesting. I'll be honest, I haven't watched many Houston Texans games this season. Let's go to, I don't even know, Free Dirk. Is that the rapper?
I believe Lil Durk.
I don't know. We got Dylan. What's up, man? For the people comparing AP to Dan Campbell first year, his team fought for him, took on his identity. No one's fighting for AP. I mean, that's basically what I said probably about an hour ago, Dylan. So I agree with you where you can't compare the two because they're 2 very different situations. And when I say 2 different situations, it's based on what I am seeing this year compared to based on what I saw with Dan. You're right. Lions fought for him. This team's not fighting for AP. Tyrone Wynn should have kept AP as linebacker coach and hired Ben Johnson. Here's the thing. I don't think Ben Johnson would have came to the Raiders last season unless they would have threw out a stupid amount of money. And I'll say this. I think if you want Ben Johnson to be the head coach this year, I think it's going to cost somewhere around $20 million a year.
Also, it's hard.
It sounded
being
like Ben Johnson wanted to stay OC of the Lions.
It's also hard being like, oh, you did an amazing job as the interim head coach, AP. You can go back to being the linebacker coach. Like, that's a tough ask.
I bet you AP would have got a job elsewhere. Which, not saying he would have got a head coaching gig because he would not have gotten a head coaching gig anywhere else in the NFL. But I do think that he probably could have got a little bit more of a promotion based off the way he did. And I think AP would have felt a type of way. I agree. I don't know if he would have taken that, stuck with that job. What up, Sacktown? Update on Les. Appreciate this, man. A.K.A. Pinhead. Still in the ICU, but doing a little better. Talked to him yesterday and wanted me to pass on to the nation his thanks for all the prayers. So for those that do not know, Sacktown let us know, was it on Sunday? Thursday? I was trying to think of the last time I was live where we talked about this and brought up that Les, a.k.a. Pinhead, was dealing with some stuff in the ICU. I'm a believer in when you put a lot of good energy into the world, good stuff happens. So if you guys get 30 seconds tonight, you know, one of the things that Alex and I have been trying to do more of, Alex is much more religious than I am. I'll be honest, I'm like kind of like a creaster, right? Like I'd show up at Christmas, Easter, that type of religion. But we've been trying to pray every day before dinner, and one of the things, the way that I train Chuck to not eat his food right away is I'll pray with Chuck just for like quick, like, bless the Lord for these gifts type of thing. And if you guys get time today, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, say a quick prayer for Pinhead. Whether you believe in it or not, I think those type of well wishes do bring good into the world. And the fact that he knows that you're thinking about him can go a long way. Don Hawkins, I smell intentional sabotage. I think that's just because only your nose in the picture. OC's horrible play calling is an easy way to get the head coach fired and possibly advance from OC to interim head coach.
That makes negative sense, Donnell. I'm sorry. Like,
I'm not kidding you. If the Raiders promoted Luke Getsy to head coach, I don't know if I'd be a fan of this team anymore. That might break me.
That's like saying...
That would break me.
I mean, like...
I'm trying to think of an example.
That's like being like, I want to be the head chef, so I'm going to burn all the food that I cook as a line cook. And then they're going to promote me to head chef because all the food is burnt, but it's because of me. And they'll, like, that makes no, like, Donnell, do you think that thought process makes any sense whatsoever?
I don't know if he thinks it. I think he's just saying that because it's the Raiders. The only reason why I know this isn't true, Donnell, is because what Luke Getsy's doing this season is what he did last season in Chicago. And it's what he did in 2022 in Chicago. It's Scripps plays well for the first drive or two, can't make any adjustments at all, and then gets padded stats in the fourth quarter because the team's losing. Like, it's literally the exact same script.
I want to steal my friend's girlfriend, so I'm going to be an asshole to her so much that she wants to then break up with her boyfriend and then date me because I'm so bad to her.
Sounds like a healthy relationship.
Actually, I don't know. With some people, that actually might work.
Some people. I've watched some of the shows that Alex's watches, and quite frankly, that seems to work.
Yeah.
It seems to work. I'll tell you this, I would never get laid in any of the shows that Alex watches.
No, I want to be I want to be nice. I want to respect your feelings. Idiot.
Spit on me. Humpy, I still like AP's plan A of Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury. Tom Telesco hit on Brock. I think AP needs another year, one more draft. Maybe we get a quarterback OC combo. But see, it can't be a maybe. It has to be. Like, you got to get a quarterback, and you got to get an offensive play caller, right? Those things need to happen. The problem is, and here's the problem, I don't trust Antonio Pierce and this regime to be able to go out and make the proper decisions at offensive coordinator and also at quarterback. I also say this in regards to, if you're one of the top candidates out there to get a job, why would you want to come to the Raiders? I think the only way that you're going to get a great offensive coordinator is if you have a different head coach. Because if I'm a great offensive coordinator, I don't know if I'm going to want to come to the Raiders after what I saw this season. And we can't always just say, oh, it's AP and we'll be able to get whatever we want. I don't think it's that easy. We got to hire an OC first, and then you got to draft a quarterback. If we could draft a quarterback and then go get an OC, maybe it's a little bit of a different scenario. I think if you want the best candidates, and I mean the best candidates at OC or at head coach, you got to do it. And I don't think that you're going to get the best candidates if AP's the head coach. Because I know this, if I was the top OC candidate, even if the Raiders had the number 1 overall pick, I don't know if I'd want to do it. Because I want to be able to put myself in a position to succeed. And based on what I've seen this season, you can't say that Antonio Pierce is going to put you in the best place to succeed. Because I was yelling at Luke Getsy for not being aggressive at, trying to score before that half against Kansas City. And then Antonio Pierce came out and admitted that he was the one telling Getsy to try to kill the clock and to not try to score right away. When you hear that type of thought process, if you're
how about we just try to score?
I know.
Like,
they're like,
no,
let's not try to score too fast.
Who cares? Score in 10 seconds. Just score.
Score.
Just score. You're not good enough to be like, we're scoring too fast. That's not a problem you have, AP.
I know.
You don't have to worry about scoring too fast because you're not scoring.
And if anything, like, you try to score, even if you do score fast, if there's a situation, it's okay because you get ball to start the second half.
Like,
and what ends up happening? And when you do that, I mean, if I'm a player, I go, all right, he's got no confidence in me. He's got absolutely no confidence in what we're doing. And then Andy Reid gets the ball back with 59 seconds and a timeout or two. And guess what? He goes, I trust my team, which I would trust Patrick Mahomes as well.
Live Oak.
It's wild. Live Oak sounds like me and my wife. Oh, Live Oak. Never change, Live Oak. Never change, man.
Holy shit.
We got 800 people here watching the show, and if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, hit that like button because I think we can all agree that's how we feel right now. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I'm sick and dead.
And some of you are like, Mitch, I think you're just sick. You're not wrong. I definitely got something, and I think it's just from Vegas, man. It happens every time I go to Vegas.
Wuhan flu.
Let's go to the next segment and the final segment here on today's show. So coming up on the Raiders Report, we're going to talk about some Raiders head coach candidates in 2025 because if you haven't already gathered, I don't think that he's going to be back. I don't think that he's going to be back next season. And it pains me to say it because I want Antonio Pierce to work. And maybe this changes, but the only reason why I'm saying that I don't think he's going to be back is because based off what I've seen this season, I don't know how anybody could want Antonio Pierce back as the head coach. So let's get into the final segment here on today's show, and then Jeremy Chuggs will answer a few more questions, and then we'll get the hell out of here. The next time that you'll see us after that is then going to be on Thursday for Thursday Night Football, and the outfits that I got to wear on Thursday, hell, The outfit I got to wear on game day this Sunday, Chuggs will tell you, I don't know how it's going to fit me. Platinum 666 was the MVP. I do not know how I'm going to fit into that.
We're going to make it fit.
It's going to be a tight squeeze, man. I should have got a double XL. Let's just say that, which I don't even know if they made double XL.
Just don't eat.
Don't eat? I think if I didn't eat from now until Sunday, there's still a chance that a nip's popping out. Quite frankly, I hope only a nip pops out on Sunday. Let's get into the final segment here on today's show. You ready? You guys ready? Coming up, let's talk about some head coaches here on the Raiders Report. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at some of the top NFL head coach candidates for the Silver and Black in 2025. If you haven't watched any of the shows that I've made all week, it's this. I wanted Antonio Pierce to work out as a head coach, and if AP keeps doing exactly what he has done all season long, we got to be able to face the facts, and I hate to say it, but the Raiders have to move on from Antonio Pierce because it's clear as day that he is in way over his head. The Raiders have no identity right now, and they are one of the worst football teams in the National Football League. If the Raiders finish with the top 5 pick, you got to do a business decision, and you got to consider moving on from AP and going out and getting a candidate. Because I know this, if you keep Antonio Pierce as your head coach, I don't know if you're going to attract some of the top OC candidates, because I know this, if I was a top OC candidate, I don't know if I'd want to play with Antonio Pierce right now. So here's your opportunity to be honest with me. And I know that depending on when you watch this video, it's Halloween or not, let's get a little bit spooky. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, which is a little bit earlier than what I usually hit you with, but it's the most important question that I think Raider fans can answer this season. Do you want AP back next season? Give me a yes. Give me a no. My answer after this YouTube ad break. If the Raiders can get a better head coach, you got to do it, Mark Davis. It's simply just a business decision. Those are Antonio Pierce's words, not mine. If AP can say business decision, I think the Raiders can too, and it's going to be tough for Mark to cut bait. But the only way that you're going to get this team going on the right path is going out and getting a franchise quarterback, and I do not trust Antonio Pierce, and I do not trust the regime that AP has created to go get us a franchise quarterback. And if we have a top 5 pick, if we have all that salary cap space, if we have all that draft capital, we're going to be able to attract some of the top head coaches, which is exactly what we need to do. So coming up here on the show, let's get into the top 5 head coach candidates for the Raiders, and I'm also going to tell you which quarterback I would pair with these coaches. I'll also say this, if you're a good head coach, you're going to put your scheme around the player that you draft, not try to force a player into your scheme. If you're wondering, Mitch, why should I subscribe to the Raiders Report? It's this. I show up every single day here, and I'm going to give you my all. I went live for 26 straight hours when the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels. If you're looking for commitment to excellence, I am your guy. You're not going to agree with every take that I give. You're going to get mad at me probably with me hooting and hollering some of the ways that I do. You're probably going to get mad with me doing a few beer bongs. But you know what? Whether you agree or disagree with my takes, I believe when you wake up every single day, that is a gift to God, and that you got to give your 100% every single day. I'm going to do that, and I do that because that's what Raider Nation does. If you feel that, if you rock with that, hit that subscribe button. Let's go to number 5 here on the list of Raiders head coach candidates for 2025, and some of you might like this name. Some of you might not like this name. The first one is this. Bill Belichick, former head coach of the New England Patriots, and I'm basing this on what I think the Raiders would do / what I would do if I was the Las Vegas Raiders. If you want to figure out a way to get maybe a little bit more continuity together, Belichick could be a guy to keep in mind. The only other reason why I'm bringing up Bill is because his relationship with Tom Brady might not be the best off the field, but I do know that they have a great working relationship. And Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, when they were together, created the greatest football dynasty of all time. I know that Brady's not going to be able to play, but it also has been very well documented that Brady's going to have a big say of who that quarterback is going to be. So if Brady gets to pick the quarterback, and that quarterback gets to work in a very similar system with Belichick, who won 6 Super Bowls from 2000 to 2023, I know the risks. Belichick without Brady has not been a very good head coach. But I also think that the Raiders right now got to be able to get some solid foundation and get a head coach that everybody respects. Bill, when he walks into that room, will draw a lot of eyes to him. He will get that respect. He is number 5 on this list for a reason, and it's not somebody that I personally would hire, but I do think it's going to be somebody that gets brought up, which is why I'm putting him on the show. If the Raiders do decide to hire Bill Belichick, I guarantee you the quarterback that they're going to go with, and quite frankly, I think the quarterback that pairs best with Belichick, it's not Cam Ward, it is Shedeur Sanders. It is a quarterback that is accurate, and one of the reasons why I am growing higher and higher on Shedeur, I do think he's a little bit of a diva, but you know who's one head coach that I think kind of puts Shedeur in his place? And even a head coach that even Dion would tell Shedeur, hey, you better listen to that guy. It's Bill Belichick. And Belichick, I think, would be able to kind of ring back Sanders a little bit. But when you see how accurate Shedeur is, he's a very different quarterback than Brady, but the accuracy is there. I think he just pairs best with Bill. Let's go to number 4 here on my list of Raiders head coach candidates for 2025. Bobby Slovic, currently the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans. And I'll be real, he has started to fall lower and lower and lower on my board because I know that he's not done as well this season compared to what he did last season as the quarterback coach, but I know that the Texans OC from 2023 to the present year, so he's got 2 years of OC experience. He comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree. That's why he's on this list. I want young, innovative coaches that show me that they are willing to change and they are willing to go with the ways that the NFL is going right now. I say that Slovic has done a great job with C.J. Stroud, and he has shown that he shows a lot of confidence in Stroud. The offensive line right now for the Texans is a little bit banged up. They also haven't been doing that great of a job. The running game isn't as good as what you see from typical Shanahan type of schemes, but Slovic, C.J. Stroud, if we can get a top quarterback to be able to go out and pair with Bobby Slovic, that's what we look at. I'll admit, I think that this one could be a coin flip between Cam Ward and Shedeur, but I'm going to trust our Texans guy here, Jeremy Chuggs, and he said that he thought Shedeur was the better pairing with Slovic based on the accuracy, based on the intelligence, and based on just the overall skill set that he has. Shedeur is a big, bright quarterback that's going to get a lot of attention here. And a lot of doubters are going to come towards Shedeur's way as well. You know who also had a lot of doubters? C.J. Stroud, because they judged the helmet and not the player. So for that reason, I'm going to trust Chuggs. I'm going to trust my gut. And I'm going to say if you go out and get Bobby Slovic, you should pair him with Shedeur Sanders. I got 3 more head coach candidates, and I'll be real. The next 3 coaches that I give you are the 3 coaches that I would want the Raiders to pick from. I wanted to give you a top 5 to just throw out a few other names there. I got some honorable mentions coming up, but if I was in the room with Mark Davis, I would go, the next 3 coaches that I'm going to bring up are the top 3 that you need to put your energy and focus on for 2025. If you need to put your energy and focus into a game, I hope that you end up trusting our sponsor here at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS. I love being able to go watch football games, but let's be honest, going to watch football games right now is a little bit difficult, and I can remember my very first game in Oakland. That was the FAB game, and the atmosphere there was one of the biggest reasons why I am a Raiders fan. There is nothing like an Oakland tailgate. There was nothing like that Oakland vibe, and I know that we don't currently have that home field advantage right now at Allegiant Stadium, but I do know that you're going to be able to get a great deal when you use Gametime. If you do use Gametime, check out the Gametime picks, because it makes it easier for you to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and a whole lot more. Gametime ticket coverage also, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Also, you're going to get that lowest price guaranteed. The tip that we always tell people, if you download the Gametime app, CHATSPORTS is the code. If you go to Las Vegas and you want to go to the tailgate, I'm not kidding you, like this is what I would do if I didn't do watch parties. I'd go to the tailgate, I'd go in the Gametime app, and I would wait 2 hours before, 1 hour before, 30 minutes before the game, go on Gametime, watch how much the ticket prices drop. Why? Because they know if you go to the game, you sit down, you're going to get food, you're going to get some drinks, you're going to spend some money there, and they know instead of taking a zero on that ticket, they're going to give it to you for a cheaper price, and then you're going to be able to go, and they're going to make money, you're going to have a great experience, and you're going to not hate when you leave. If the Raiders probably lose, you're going to still go, I had a great time. I got a lot of awesome memories from that, and I didn't break the bank. That's why Gametime is the perfect app for anybody that's planning on going out to Las Vegas. So, one more time here, download the Gametime app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that link is available to the entire nation and to everybody that watches this video, down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. Let's go to number 3 here on my list of Raiders head coach candidates for next season. Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. I am not surprised that Atlanta's offense is clicking as well as it is clicking right now, and that you got a guy like Kirk Cousins who's making everybody around him just look a lot better. He's a first-year OC with Atlanta, and he's going to be a hot commodity next year. For a lot of people that watched my shows in last offseason, no, Zach Robinson was in my top 3 of offensive coordinators I wanted the Raiders to hire. Luke Getsy was near the bottom. He comes from the Sean McVay tree, and he worked as a pass game specialist and offensive specialist for the Rams from 2019 to 2023. This is another young and up-and-coming coach that you can see is clearly outsmarting a lot of the coaches where are on the exact same wavelength as him in terms of years of experience. I love what he's done with the quarterback position. And it's not really all that surprising of when they went out and traded for Matthew Stafford and how good Stafford looked in his first year or two with the Rams. You know why? Zach Robinson was working with them side by side. When you see how good Kirk Cousins looks this season, when you see how a guy like Drake London taking his game to the next level, a guy like Kyle Pitts, it's almost like Atlanta has unlocked Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. They have a lot of talent on offense. They also had a lot of talent on offense last season and couldn't do a lot with it. Zach Robinson has totally opened up this playbook, but what he's great at, he's taking the players that they have, building around those players, and doing just what makes the most sense. So for that reason, if the Raiders go out and they get Zach Robinson as a head coach, the QB that I think pairs best with him is Cam Ward. And the reason why that I'm going to say it's Cam Ward is because I think Cam Ward's the best quarterback prospect in this year's draft. And because I trust Zach Robinson so much at the quarterback position, and I trust the Sean McVay tree so much, I say go get the best freaking guy. And the best freaking guy is Cam Ward. Before I get into my top 2 coaches, I do want to throw out some honorable mentions there. So the coaches that are on the left are the honorable mentions. The quarterbacks that you see on the right are the QBs that I think pair best with that guy. So for Clint Kubiak, his type of West Coast system, I'd go with Shedeur Sanders, Ryan Grubb, Joe Brady, Brian Flores. I would go with Cam Ward because, again, I think that they're just the best available quarterback. Plus, I actually love Ryan Grubb's system with a guy like Cam. And then Todd Monken. Maybe it's a little bit of a hot take, but I think if you put Monken and you use a guy like Jalen Milroe the same way that you use somebody like a Lamar Jackson, I think that would be the highest upside. Now, if you have the number 1 pick, I still want the Raiders to take Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I think if you ended up getting Todd Monken, then you end up probably keeping a coach like AP because you were unable to go out and get maybe one of these great coordinators, but Monken also is not leaving his current position to come here and be an OC. If you haven't already, click that like button. Make sure you do so because good head coaches build around the talent they have on their roster. And I really, really, truly believe that. Maybe me saying, hey, this quarterback pairs best with this head coach is going a little bit above and beyond, and I don't totally disagree with that. But if you believe in the idea that good head coaches build around the talent that they have, hit that like button because that's what I need a head coach to do. I need a head coach that understands that and is able to execute that. Let's go to number 2 here of Raiders head coach candidates. If you don't want to go get an offensive-minded guy, and I think a lot of people know who number 1 is. If you can't go get number 1, and if Zach Robinson's like, I don't really know if I want to get this job, I think the number 2 candidate is going to end up being Mike Vrabel. I personally would want Robinson more than Vrabel. I have Vrabel ranked higher because I think the Raiders would be more interested in Vrabel than they would be Zach Robinson. He is currently coaching and as a personnel consultant for the Cleveland Browns, but he was the Titans head coach from 2018 to 2023. And quite frankly, I think he's a top head coach candidate where there's not 32 coaches better than Mike Vrabel right now in the NFL. I think he's one of the most well-respected coaches in the league. And if you want an easy transition from AP, a coach that always his teams fought hard, a coach that always got the best out of his players, that's what Vrabel did. Yes, he's a defensive-minded guy, and I would love to see his pairing with Patrick Graham, but defensive-minded head coaches with also a lot of ties to Tom Brady. The reason why that I would go with Cam Ward here if I'm going with Mike Vrabel is because Vrabel's mindset, he's a lot more of a He's going to bring the juice. Going to bring a lot of energy. And I think a guy like Vrabel and Shador honestly could butt heads a little bit. But when you have a quarterback like Cam Ward who's so laid back and go with the flow, that's why I would pair up Cam Ward with Mike Vrabel. But number one, if you don't know who number one is, you haven't watched this show for basically 2.5 freaking years, man. It's Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Ben Johnson will be the number one head coach candidate for every single NFL team out there. And I think if the Raiders have the number one pick, quite frankly, I think the only way that the Raiders have any shot at getting Mr. Johnson here is if they do have the number one overall pick. The only other team that scares the hell out of me at being able to attract Johnson is the Dallas Cowboys, because I don't know if they're going to keep Mike McCarthy. But this is a guy who's been the OC for Detroit from 2022 to present, and I really think has been able to revitalize Jared Goff's career. Has Goff done a good job since coming to Detroit? Absolutely he has. But I also think it shows you where when you have a good OC and your head coach is a guy like Dan Campbell that's not an X's and O's guy, you need somebody like Johnson that's fun, creative, and he's one of the smartest young coaches. He's one of the most creative guys in the biz right now. And I'm telling you this, if the Raiders head coach was Ben Johnson, and if you went out and got a Cam Ward, they're making the playoffs in year one. If you want to try to recreate what you're seeing in Washington right now with Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels, go get Ben Johnson and Cam Ward. Or I think Ben Johnson would be able to crush it with Shador Sanders. Hell, I think Johnson would be able to crush it with any quarterback possible because he is that good of an offensive-minded guy. And if you go out and you get somebody like this, you let him build his staff from top to bottom. I don't know if the Raiders would end up keeping Patrick Graham because they would probably give Ben Johnson the keys to the car. And it's also going to cost Mark Davis way more than what it cost, a guy like Gruden. It was reported last season that Johnson was looking for north of $15 million. If the Raiders wanted to get Johnson next season, I think it's going to be close to $20 million per year, and he's going to be up there with the highest paid coach in the NFL, somewhere around Sean McVay right now, somewhere around a guy like Sean Payton. But if you want the best, sometimes you got to go out and pay the best, Mark. And if you're going to charge the ticket prices that you're charging, and after the years that we've had here, if you want to try to save Raiders football in Las Vegas and actually get people to go watch, sometimes you got to break the bank and go get yourself a head coach. So here we go. The Raiders head coach candidates in 2025. This is a list blended of coaches that I want / coaches that I think that the Raiders would try to pursue. As the year goes on, I will make more videos of the coaches that I think are the most likely to happen. The coaches that I want. The coaches that I think the Raiders want. We're going to make this video more than once because, unfortunately, Antonio Pierce is in over his head, and I do not think that he's going to be back in 2025. If he is back in 2025, well, then we're going to be making a lot more offensive coordinator type of videos because I don't trust AP. I don't trust Telesco. I don't trust this current regime to build a solid offensive structure based off of everything I've seen this season. All right, y'all, Halloween is just 2 days away, and we're going to be live Thursday Night Football. What are you going to be for Halloween?
This is Halloween. Maybe Kool-Aid Man.
Maybe the Kool-Aid Man? I am going to be Borat on Thursday. So you guys are going to see a side of me that I don't know if you've ever seen.
What is Alex going to be for Halloween? Is she doing anything?
So Alex had a Halloween party over the weekend, which I'm kicking myself in the... I had a great time in Vegas. But one of my favorite nights out is when Alex comes home on Halloween. And every guy knows what I'm talking about. She was Mexican Betty Boop. Yep. It was a great outfit. I was kicking myself in the ass a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. Kicking myself in the ass a little bit. I'm going to be Borat on Thursday. And then I am going to be a Cheers cheerleader on Sunday when the Raiders play the Bengals because the MVP Platinum ended up getting the dub. What are you guys going to be? What are you guys going to be? I'm going to dress up as AP I don't know. Oliver C. says the Raiders offensive coordinator. Maybe I will dress up as the Raiders offensive coordinator. Maybe. We got, I think, a few more supers, or just one.
Yeah.
Just one, and then we're going to get out of here. Zamir White fan.
Rough name.
We know the season is over unless we win the rest of our games, and I'm not that delusional. So besides our QB, what position should we sign or draft in my opinion, halfback. I think running back is probably one of the least important positions that we need to worry about. I don't even think running back is a top position that we need to care about, to be quite frank. To me, it's quarterback, it's offensive line, and then we can figure it out from there. You've got a lot of players that you got to re-sign on the defensive side of the football.
Look at
wide receivers, another position.
Look at free agent. Derrick Henry signed for 2 years, $9 million.
Yeah.
Running back is your last worry.
Running back proves that if you're in the right system, you can still be great. I think Derrick Henry's a little bit of the outlier, but I think also the perfect fit for Derrick Henry and perfect fit for Baltimore was those two pairing together. I can instantly tell, and there's a lot of people out there like, oh, the Raiders should have kept Josh Jacobs. The way that I know that a guy doesn't know ball, and even if they make content, and I know there's a lot of Raiders content creators out there, but if I ever hear a Raiders content creator saying, oh, we should have kept Josh Jacobs at $15 million, legitimately, you should unsubscribe to that channel. That's one of the most idiotic things that I could possibly imagine. That's like you going to get financial advice, and they go, I know you can only afford a trailer, but in that trailer, I also want you to get a Bugatti. You can, if you have a great running back, but your offensive line, your quarterback stinks, you have a Bugatti in a trailer park. And if anybody out there is living that experience, I would say invest your money in other ways. I don't think it's a smart way to do it, but you got to be able to solve so many other issues before you figure out what your running back dilemma is. Because I think if the Raiders had a good offensive line and a good quarterback, I actually think Zamir White might be halfway decent. I think even a guy like Alexander Madison would be a little bit better.
Rebel, you should know that, buddy.
Rebel, why Bieniemy not included? You know why. You got to know why by now, Rebel. Come on, man. Better than that. Yoda, eating grapes with a rabbit while wearing a surrogate cucumber in my red underwear, sweeping dirt and broken dishes from my front door. That's a legendary super chat that only the real ones are going to understand. Yoda, thanks for being a real one, y'all. If you're still watching the show, you are a real one. The next time that you're going to see me is going to be on Halloween. It's going to be me and then one of our new producers here. His name is Reed. We're dressing up Thursday Night Football. Chuggs is going to be live on our Texans show. So we're going to be having a little bit of fun with Chuggs that day as well.
Oh, no.
I hope you guys all have a great rest of your week. Hopefully nothing crazy happens. I kind of hope that some crazy stuff does happen. I'll see you guys on Halloween. We'll bring some laughs. We'll bring some fun. Appreciate all y'all tuning in. Have a good night.